Numerous reports have just come out that Joe Biden will resign from the presidential race, potentially tomorrow, maybe sometime before Sunday. Now, his campaign is denying it, saying it's false. But we got numerous reports. One report actually suggesting he's already informed campaign officials that he is out, and the announcement will come soon. Axios reporting numerous Democrat sources saying he will leave the race, and it's basically trending all across X. So this is huge, and especially considering since the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, his polls have started to surge in many swing states. And now many of those that were toss-up on 270 to win are now leaning Republican. And it looks like Donald Trump has just taken the lead in Virginia, which just about, based on current polling, suggests he's going to win. Of course, everyone's saying, don't count your chickens before they hatch. You've got to still go out. You got to vote. We don't know what's going to happen. And more importantly, with Joe Biden dropping out of the race, assuming that is true, we don't even know who Donald Trump will be up against. So we're going to talk about that. We are here at the RNC in Milwaukee for a special live show with a very large studio audience now watching. How's it going, everybody? All right. Yeah. Well, you can hear them. They're yelling. And so we got a bunch of great guests as well. But before we get started, this show is sponsored by vaultdrinks.com. Head over to vaultdrinks.com/TimPool. You can get an exclusive offer for 10% on Vault. Now, what is it? No sugar, no caffeine, ketone energy drink. It's the first ever Go BHB ketone high octane brain fuel that supercharges your mind and body, that contains no sugar, no caffeine, nothing artificial. For the first time ever, a company has made a 100% bioidentical ketone to the one your body makes, and it is 100% natural, and it's in this great tasting drink called Vault. Be your best by speeding up your brain activity, boost your memory, reaction time, focus, and sharpness while reducing stress and balancing your mood. For those that are watching, we've got this QR code that you can use. It will be popping up throughout the show. So scan that QR code and you can get 10% off. I got to be honest, they sent us some of this stuff and it disappeared in about a day because it really does taste good. And everybody who's here got a free sample of it. Shout out to vaultdrinks.com, link in the description below. And don't forget to go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. On today's members-only call-in show, we're actually going to be taking questions directly from the audience that is here tonight, and we'll mix that in with a couple of calls from you guys, assuming we can do that. We may not be able to, but we'll try our best. So become a member now. You have to sign up at the $10 a month level for at least 6 months to get access to question submissions. But if you sign up today at $25, you bypass that, and then you can submit questions now. People will vote on them. And if your question is chosen by the community, then you will join our show just about 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. So again, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. We've got a great panel tonight. Joining us, we've got Mike Lindell.
Thanks for having me on, Tim. Thank you.
Everybody knows who you are, but you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm a conspiracy theorist.
There you go.
So I'm a CEO of MyPillow and a president of frankspeech.com.
Right on. Well, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We got Tayler Hansen here.
Thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a field reporter with Tenet Media. I pretty much cover breaking news around the country, pretty much anything and everything under the sun.
He's got a bunch of videos from outside the RNC as well. And you've witnessed a lot of these people like essentially cheering on the assassination attempt of Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that just seems to be the mainstream narrative. And, they're against Biden, too, funny enough.
Yes, so. We're going to pull that video up later. Luke Rudkowski is here.
Hey, guys, I'm a conspiracy realist because they all become true eventually. YouTube.com/We Are Change. I release a lot of content on there. And if you want to support me, check out wearechange.shop. I got a lot of good and funny products on there. wearechange.shop.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm the editor with the Post Millennial. Glad to be here.
And I'm Hannah Claire Brimlaw. I'm a writer for SCNR.com, Scanner News. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. If Ellen is here, thank you for stopping me on the street the other day. That was super cool. Why don't we get started?
Oh, she's waving.
Oh, hi, Ellen.
All right.
She came running out of her office. It was amazing.
All right. Here's the big news. We've got this from Axios. Behind the curtain, top Dems now believe Biden will exit. This was initially reported that Biden was considering dropping out at some point this weekend. It appears they updated the story to say several top Democrats privately tell us the rising pressure of party congressional leaders and close friends will persuade Biden to decide to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend. I love how they wrote that because they could not put more caveats in this. We are told that rising pressure will persuade him to drop out as soon as this weekend. But we do have this from OSINT Defender on X. U.S. and this is a large account that typically is very credible, over 1 million followers, saying U.S. President Joe Biden has reportedly notified campaign officials of his decision to withdraw from the ongoing presidential race, with an official announcement coming sometime before Sunday. Despite his withdrawal, it is not believed he will resign the presidency or endorse another candidate like Vice President Kamala Harris. Instead, August's Democratic National Convention in Chicago is expected to be the first brokered convention since 1952, with possibly dozens of Democratic candidates vying for the nomination. I think Biden is going to drop out. I said I thought he wasn't going to be the nominee back in November. I think they are just padding their words right now because instead of coming out with the shock news report, Biden's out, everybody kind of freaks out, loses their mind. They're giving people a soft landing by first saying Biden may resign, he's being pressured. Then they say more people have come forward, more Democrats have emerged. Then Biden says, well, maybe if I have a condition. A couple hours later, Biden says, oh, look, I have COVID. Now they release the story. They're trickling it out to get people prepared for the idea that Joe Biden will not be the nominee.
What I thought was, go ahead.
No, you go.
What I thought was really interesting was how the report from Mark Halperin this afternoon said that he would not be endorsing Kamala Harris and would be endorsing an open convention. And what's great about that is they've been pushing her on us for years now. And it turns out they don't actually even think that she's fit to be president.
Smartest thing Biden's ever done. There's not a whole lot in there, but, he got this one.
It's one last farewell to the establishment, I think, if Biden is like, well, I'm not going to even endorse this lady you made me take on this ticket. No, I think,
Wow.
I mean, it is very difficult for me to believe that Biden is going to resign until I see it, because I think the Biden family is pretty power hungry. I mean, Hunter and Joe Biden this whole time have been like, just stay on the ticket. Don't forget about the stairs. Forget about the gaps. You can do it. I mean, they're really. You have to applaud them for how supportive they are of his desire to stay in the White House forever. But the other thing that this makes me think of is how much the media would actually love an open convention. I mean, can you imagine the ratings, the eyes that every large media company would get if you had to watch the Democratic National Convention to see who their nominee is going to be?
Oh, this is the Democrats' wet dream. That when Bernie Sanders came in the grassroots with a grassroots effort in 2016, they lost their minds. They had to collude with media to make sure Bernie couldn't win. Then in 2020, Bernie pops his head back up, and they have to get all the moderate candidates to drop out and endorse Joe Biden so that he can win. And now they're sitting there saying, guys, if we do another convention, RFK Jr. wins. So they've effectively shut down the primary process. Joe Biden, I mean, look what they wrote about him in 2020. All we need is your corporeal presence. He was never a real candidate. He was a pariah candidate they could use to undo the policies that Trump had in place that were popular and effective, because they want to undo that. They want a totally... The policy plans they have for the United States is to give away our manufacturing, open up the borders, engage in war, and they knew whoever they chose is going to lose next time to Donald Trump because he sucks. Whoever was the president was going to get elected because of the shadow campaign. Then he was going to rip apart Trump's policies, damage this country, and they'd be screwed. This seems like it's all part of the plan.
It is pretty crazy. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, it seems like it's a lose-lose situation for the Democrats regardless. Like, Trump is going to win in this upcoming election from everything that I've seen. And from all the media reports, you see them posturing in a way of, we told you so with the coverage. Oh, we knew Trump was going to win, because then that benefits them in the end. And what better way to get rid of Kamala Harris, who is widely unpopular, than have her take President Trump's position? And then her career is going to be ruined in the future. Somebody else can step in and take over the Democratic Party come 2028.
I wonder, though, if there isn't a large swath of the American public that doesn't want to vote for either Biden or Trump and would really welcome another candidate. I certainly have spoken to people who are saying, like, I'm not going to vote at all. I don't like Trump still. I don't like Trump. And I definitely can't vote for Biden after the debate. So, a third candidate would pop up and maybe be useful. I think of this episode of Will and Grace, actually, where they were trying to vote for someone for city council, and Grace was supporting the Jewish female candidate, and Will was supporting the, white gay candidate. And they get home and they're very upset because they both realize that their candidates are actually incredibly flawed. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen this episode. and then they get back and Jack says, why didn't you just vote for the black guy? And they both go, there's a black guy running, and they rush out to vote.
Wow. When was this?
This was Will and Grace, whenever Will and Grace was on.
Like
what was that, the 90s or something like that? Yeah, so I think that there are some people who would run home after realizing that they don't have to, run out to vote and say, oh, there's somebody totally different running. Let's just vote for that person, regardless of who it is. And there's not going to be enough time to really vet some new candidate.
I think they wait. You're exactly right. There's not enough time. And what I see is evil overplayed its part. And they, even with that debate, their big plan was let's show the world that to get rid of Biden. But they thought that Donald Trump would actually have a bad debate and maybe pick on him because he can't think, And it was perfect. When he said that thing, when he goes, I don't even understand what you said. None of us did.
I don't think he does.
Nobody
really speaking for the American people then.
But he was speaking from the heart. And I told our real president, I said, he did such a good job in the debate there. He brought up stuff that, his policies that manifested to December of 2019 when all of our lives had improved. And, no matter where your baseline was, it had improved. And then he brought up things like, I was just in Chicago a month ago, and I had a big event there with Democrats that voted for Biden that were now going to vote for Donald Trump. And I interviewed him and said, why? And so many of them said, well, it's because, open borders, all the illegals were taking their jobs and all their resources. I come from a life of addiction, and their treatment centers were full of people that we're paying for now that are in our country illegally. So I think that I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes on the left, and there are Democrats that are switching, that realize instead of maybe taking someone else because they didn't like either one, now they actually they're coming into the mega bucket.
I think the play is to have Donald Trump actually win. And I think a lot of bureaucrats, Democrats, and warmongers are already preparing for this in many different ways, not only on the local governmental level, but also when it comes to funding for the war in Ukraine. You see many efforts congressionally, even right now, to try to make sure that the war funding continues under Donald Trump presidency. So I think they gave up. I think they're not really running. Biden wasn't really running in the weeks before this. He's not really running now. And I think the true play that's going to be happening next is the subversion and potentially even the perpetual war that's going to be expanding, or financial collapse that would happen under a Donald Trump presidency that would be planned for him and blamed on him specifically. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking like they're thinking, because you see them setting up the traps for him already. And I think everyone's expecting this year to be crazy. My prediction is 2025 will actually be the craziest year ever. And I think that will be the kind of great reset. That will be the kind of realization that they are really planning for. And that's why I think they're going to let Trump kind of have it here. And I think Biden's going to continue to be the candidate.
He might be the candidate, right? I think that's fair. We don't know. I do feel personally that he can't be. But I think there's a good argument that Luke's making as to why he may remain even after all of this. And it's that anybody who takes the position after he leaves, their career's done. Yep. You're going to go up. You're going to have a half-assed campaign a couple months out. You're going to be a joke. You're not going to beat Donald Trump. You're not coming back 4 years later. So if they try to pull in Newsom now, I can only imagine him saying, are you nuts? I've got a real opportunity in 4 years. If I go now, it's going to ruin my credibility. It's going to ruin my image.
Right. This report that Biden, if he is thinking about leaving, wouldn't endorse Kamala Harris actually makes me think that Kamala Harris has said, do not recommend me to replace you. I don't want to have to inherit your legacy. I don't want to have to fix your economy. You guys don't like me anyways, and this will make it difficult for me to move forward. Because potentially, if she were to run, she could have 8 years in the White House, but she'll always have to defend her time on the Biden ticket. And I think everyone, even Kamala Harris, knows that it's just impossible to do.
Well, she's got to defend the past 4 years, where every time she was given a job to do, she said, oh, that's not my job. I don't have to do that. And her office was like, what? Border? Who? Where? What? We don't have to do that.
We want to go to the abortion clinic.
We're doing abortion and BLM, and that's it.
If Luke's theory lines up, it actually makes sense as to why they chose Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Biden drops out. Kamala Harris, they use her as, I don't know, just a mannequin placeholder.
Which kind of makes sense because Democrats are racist.
Well, she's never going to win. She's a terrible candidate. She couldn't even get a single delegate. And they're thinking, once Biden is gone, we need someone who can hold that position figuratively or just symbolically. But we don't want to waste any of our up-and-coming talent because it certainly ain't Kamala. So Biden drops out. Kamala is the heir apparent. That's what media is reporting. And she has no career in 4 years. She didn't have a career this time around. Yep. So it's easy for Democrats to be like, she can absorb the damage of the PR failures of this campaign, and then Newsom can come in 4 years.
Right. I mean, Biden did refer to himself as a bridge candidate back in the day. He acted as if he was going to be a 4-year president. So if he always knew that whether it was because he was making empty promises to the DNC saying, I'll step down and let you put someone else in, or whether he really wasn't sure he would be allowed to stay in that position, I don't know. But I do think that there was always a possibility that Biden was not supposed to run for a second term. And this really has been his family and the staff that's been going with him for the decades that he's been in government saying, no, we can keep going. Everyone likes us, and they don't.
Let me pull up this from predictit.org. Joe Biden is now in 3rd place in the prediction market for the Democratic ticket. Despite winning the primary, he has dropped down. And the funny thing is, because we made this joke a couple weeks ago where, I was saying we follow the news so much, we can see what's on the horizon. And I'm making the joke, why don't I buy in this market? I'd be rich. Heavens me, if I bought no on Joe Biden, I'd have made a lot of money.
Even if you had bought Kamala a couple of weeks ago, right? Like, you could be selling now for a nice turn of profit.
Yeah. Gretchen Whitmer is actually now in 2nd place. You guys think she'll be the VP?
No.
No.
Although Tayler said earlier that he thought they'd run an all-female ticket.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to go with the double female lineup. They know they're going to. Well, the thing is I think I'm more on board with Luke. Is they know they're going to lose. They have absolutely no chance, especially replacing Biden if they do this late into the candidacy. There's no possible route for them to actually win. So maybe 2 people that aren't very popular. It would make sense to me for them to go down in flames.
And also, if they have more debates, right? Theoretically, there's going to be a debate, maybe a VP date in August, and then there'll be a VP debate in September. And so you can't put these nice, strong American men up against women and have them do badly. All the feminists will cry about it.
Taylor, if there's anyone who knows how to go down, it is Kamala Harris. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But no, I do see the writing on the wall. Let Trump win, and then engineer a larger event, maybe financial crash, maybe pandemic 2.0, maybe war, and then blame it all on him.
You know what I can't get past, though, right? I appreciate the idea that Joe Biden was always going to drop out. They never expected to win 2024. But then what happened on Saturday? Because whatever happened on Saturday clearly was not according to plan. Mm-hmm. And so if they really were intending on losing, was the plan that Kamala Harris would be the president simply because the Republicans would be in chaos after Donald Trump lost his life?
I don't know.
Well, think about this. Think of what if they're, getting rid of him like we planned. I knew that when Anderson Cooper after the debate is that, everyone's attacking Biden and no one's saying anything about Donald Trump. Well, you knew this was their big play. But if you're going to steal an election, let's just use that on premise. If you're going to steal another election, you got to have something that's somewhat believable to the public. Nobody would believe if they do, let's say they steal the election, that they go all in with the machines and ballot harvest, whatever it is, and no one's going to believe it. But if you bring in whatever they would be bringing, I don't know what it's going to be, this all-women's ticket, and then they put out polls. Just last week, Fox put out a poll that it was, just last week, Fox put out a poll, I think, that they were even. I mean, come on.
Right.
Give me a break.
538 has the simulation showing Biden winning, even right now.
Right, yeah. So you think of this, everybody. We know the real thing is Trump's favored by 60% of the country or more. So my theory is, and I'm a marketer, I'm thinking, well, you get rid of Biden and, you show him up there to the world how he is, and then you get rid of him, and now you bring in, we don't know what ticket would be, but you start feeding the public. Wow, they're polling. Trump's down 2 all of a sudden, and he puts this out there. Now, if you steal it, it's just like 2020. Well, it's somewhat believable. What they did right here in Wisconsin, the polls came out that Donald Trump was a 17-point underdog in 2020, a week before the election, up to the election, when they were polling even before that on the real polls. Well, he loses by 1%. They go, wow, what a great effort. So nobody questions it, right? Except for a few people. But this is what I'm saying. These false polls and the propaganda, when you have every news outlet, including Fox, will be saying, hey, they're polling even. Realize Fox has controlled opposition. Everybody knows that.
If Donald Trump lost his life on Saturday, I believe Nikki Haley would be the nominee. The Republican convention would be in disarray. She'd show up and she'd say, I have the next highest amount of delegates. Here's why you should choose me. They'd probably, the Rhino establishment uniparty guys would be like, of course we have to do this. And then when Nikki Haley loses to Kamala or Joe Biden, whoever else, it's believable. Because they're going to say even the Republican Party didn't like Nikki Haley and they had no choice.
You're exactly right.
The Democrats were unified the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the uniparty for you. That is the uniparty. You know, you guys got to realize in my efforts across this country, I was telling that I wasn't fighting Democrats. It was this weird uniparty Republicans. You know, the first guy, you know, you have Robin Voss right here in Wisconsin. How many people know about Robin Voss? You know, it's horrible, right?
Hands are going up.
You know, and
who is that? What happened with that?
Robin Voss is the Speaker of the House here in Wisconsin, and he ordered an investigation in after the 2020 election by a guy by the name of Michael Gableman, an ex-Supreme Court judge here in Wisconsin. It was a year-long investigation. They came out with all this fraud. Robin Voss had to admit, yep, there was widespread fraud. My teams met with them and everything. Yeah, there was widespread fraud, but there's nothing I can do unless a court would rule on it. 1 month later, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin ruled that there was widespread fraud, so Robin went into hiding, and he shut down the investigation, fired Gableman, and so then what was it? And they set up the WEC in Wisconsin, which is the Wisconsin Election Commission. It's like the Secretary of State here, and very corrupt group. Well, anyway, the people then, we tried to recall Robin Voss this spring. We got enough signatures, they discredited him, the WEC did. Then we got enough, and they approved it. The WEC said, the lawyer said, yep, it's all approved, you got enough. We do his recall on August 6th, and the WEC said, no, we're not going to do it. It's against the country. What did we go through all the trouble for? You know, it's so corrupt. I think his whatever you call it, his approval rating is like 14%. You know,
low.
And the Democrats and Republicans want him gone. How does he keep winning? Ever wonder that?
Well, Mike, you're a conspiracy theorist. What do you think happened on Saturday? Right? Because I'll say there's no official story.
Right.
The news has reported that a crazy guy took a shot, but we don't actually have an official narrative yet.
No, you know, we don't. And I'll tell you, I've been to over 150, maybe 200 rallies, and I look around at everything. The Secret Service, everything that's in place. And what I've seen there, and I wasn't at that one. I was in Miami, and we skipped to Pennsylvania, and there were so many deviations from a normal rally. Yeah, you add them up, and you can't. I'm sorry, it's impossible. And the biggest one, and right now, what are they doing? They're pushing out this guy's background. Oh yeah, look what he put on, Facebook or Twitter, whatever it was. Well, you go find someone in the town or whatever. You find some crazy. And, that's my thinking. There's no way there wasn't anybody on that roof. It's impossible that you didn't have a sniper on the roof looking into the crowd.
And not just that 10 minutes before Trump took the stage, right. They knew. They called him out as a threat.
Mm-hmm. How about
How's
this?
that possible?
How about this? You've all seen the picture where you hear the shots, bing, 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 bing. And then you hear the guy, the assassin getting killed. Not even 3 seconds later, bing, 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 bing. And you look up and they got the camera of him going, they got him, they're ready on him. And the shots fired. And then all of a sudden he shoots and kills him. If you don't know that he's there
That's
or know
really
it's there, and
point.
you hear a shot go off, you look around, and you find it. Now you have to identify your target. If he did all that in 3 seconds, impossible.
You don't bring Trump back. You don't bring Trump back on the stage, and you allow him to address the crowd during an active shooting situation. From my opinion, as soon as I saw it, I said inside job automatically. Mm-hmm. There's no way that this is possible. Yeah. We've been predicting it as independent media, and it happened. You don't need a conspiracy theory. We need to put the burden of proof on the federal government to prove otherwise now. And I think that's the talking point that we need to get out there, because they need to prove to us that they weren't complicit, because they absolutely were in my book.
When I was younger, the JFK assassination was a crazy guy, and now it is mainstream. It was a CIA. RFK Jr. talks about it openly, and he is the third highest polling candidate for the presidency, publicly stating the CIA killed his dad and his uncle.
Yep.
Well, Trump should have never even been able to step on stage, considering they had already identified the shooter as a threat 10 minutes beforehand. They saw him, I believe it was 26 minutes?
3 hours.
Yeah, which is insane.
3 hours.
How many coincidences can you have that don't line up? In a normal situation, Trump would have never been able to actually go on that stage until you start asking deeper questions. The slanted roof narrative, all of these things, they already have Secret Service on the slanted roof. It's like, come on. People are a little bit smarter than that, but I don't think that they expect the American public to ask questions. They just expect them to go the JFK route and go, oh,
Right,
must have been just mass incompetency. And with the DEI stuff we see nowadays, it's understandable. But at the same time, how many times can you have these failures and blatant failures until you start asking deeper questions?
Right. Also, the Secret Service has just had excuse after excuse after excuse right now. I mean, what was it? At first, it was local law enforcement are in charge of it. Actually, we always knew. Actually, we're afraid of slanted roofs, despite the fact that they've been a part of American architecture for years and years and years.
And the White House, in fact.
We
The
were
White
not
House.
planned for sloped roofs.
We were unprepared for this situation for an event that we've known about for a long time. I mean, it's just to a certain extent unexcusable. And again, I do think it's worth differentiating agents who were courageous in the moment and stepped up to do something versus the organization that they are a part of. I think we've all, seen this happen where there are good people on the ground when the management is really bad. And I think that this is just not something that we can gamble with the Secret Service, especially since the President Trump still has to rely on them. Right now, he is being guarded by Secret Service. I mean, if you are thinking that this agency is not being honest, let's remember that they have not had a press conference on what's going on, but they have sent their director to do an ABC interview.
And to the RNC.
And to the RNC, where
she was confronted by Marsha Blackburn and some others. Yeah.
The public just deserves answers. And I think also probably, every candidate who's now being protected by Secret Service, Biden, RFK, and Trump, should really know what the state of those they're trusting their lives to
And
is.
For me, that was the one agency I still trusted. I mean, I've been up against CISA, the CIA, the FBI. They run around taking my phone all the time. I mean, all these companies, it's not just three letters. It's the CISA is really bad. And here, I trusted the Secret Service. I'm going, wow, there's one good agency. I know a lot of them personally, many of them. And to have that happen, I'm going, I'm praying that, how deep did it go?
It was a heck of a gambit.
Pretty deep.
But I think the reasonable conclusion right now, or I shouldn't say even conclusion, but the reasonable hypothesis is in some capacity official involvement. That doesn't mean that every single Secret Service member or law enforcement officer is in on it. It could be as easy as one high-up official going over the plan for security, just moving one piece off the chessboard, leaving a hole in security. Let me pull up this story from the Daily Mail. Senator who cornered Secret Service director in a GOP convention luxury suite reveals what he asked that sent her running. After 20-year-old Thomas Crooks shot former President Trump and killed former firefighter Corey Comprator at a rally on Sunday, Cheadle has been called on to resign, and multiple investigations into the matter have been announced. On a call Wednesday with Cheadle, FBI Director Christopher Wray and lawmakers, officials revealed Trump's protective detail spotted the shooter 20 minutes before he opened fire. On that call, Cheadle refused to respond to questions about why Trump was allowed to take the stage. So we saw this recently, that apparently she decided to walk into the RNC and was hounded by basically everybody, journalists, Republicans, politicians. I'm actually surprised she thought she could show up here and people would just be like, yeah, sure, okay, fine. I don't even know if resignation is enough. I don't know that she has any direct involvement in what happened. But again, the idea that they saw the guy 3 hours prior with a rangefinder, an hour before the shot, they took pictures of him. 26 minutes, again, another confrontation, that two local law enforcement confronted him, that she's lying. No way am I going to play any of their game. She's lying when she says the roof was sloped, so we didn't have anybody up there. That's nonsense. And
that makes no sense.
I'll cite Dan Bongino. They also didn't block line of sight. And then they lied and claimed local law enforcement was supposed to be protecting that, not them. And local law enforcement says, are you nuts? No, we weren't. This lady has lied about it, and I want answers. So I'm hoping that this may be the first time. But I'll tell you this, Tucker Carlson said this could be the first, this may be one of the only crimes we actually get resolved because of all these are my words, arrogant and egotistical members of Congress who think they will one day be president and they don't want to be in that situation. But it is actually stunning. We are at a time, I grew up, the JFK shooting, you're a conspiracy theorist if you suggest anything about it other than a crazy guy took action.
Yeah, everyone freaked out about Oliver Stone's movie.
Absolutely. But now I sit down with Ron Paul, Luke and I, what was it, a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago. And he says it was the CIA. And that's a former member of Congress, a mainstream talking point. And then we hear this when we interview RFK Jr. only a few months ago. And he says outright, the CIA killed my dad and my uncle. We are now at the point where when this happens, there's no official narrative. There was the media coming out immediately saying, here's what happened, here's your story, and pass it along like we would normally expect in the past. This time around, immediately everybody said, inside job, official capacity, we want answers.
And then to have them there, that I'm friends with Kevin Kramer, Senator Kramer. The ones you're listing there, Marsha Blackburn and the other senators, these are the ones that actually stepped up right after the 2020 election. I was with them. Those are the ones that actually listened to all the stuff and all the evidence we had. And they said they took a step back, looked at it all. Of course, nobody listened to them either then, but but if more people are like them, more senators calling them out, they've got to put, I like that. There's 3 of them joined Kevin and put that pressure on her. She's, and it's different. It's going to be different. All these things that have happened to us is since the 2020 election, every people's eyes are getting open up. It's like if they gave us another virus, another China virus 2.0, you think we'd all be outside eating in snowbanks and wearing masks and doing all this other stuff? We wouldn't put up with it. So these things, I think people are finally getting courageous, including senators.
I think the Epstein files may have been, if not the dam breaking, but a crack in the dam.
Yep.
And so shout out to, I think it was the Miami Herald as well as Mike Cernovich, who broke that, reopened that story. Of course, Alex Jones has been talking about it for a long time. But all of a sudden, the Epstein conspiracy story goes mainstream. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, got that video of Amy Rohrbach saying, I had the story and they killed it. Piece by piece is hitting the mainstream narrative, and the corporate press couldn't keep it down, to the point where they had no choice but to make a move on Epstein, and then they made a move on Epstein. But the moment he did, everyone just knew, and they knew. There was no conspiracy theory. There was no ridicule from the corporate press. It was outright, ain't no reasonable person going to believe that Epstein just curled up on the top bunk of his narrow bed with a sheet in his neck and then lunged forward on his knees. It made no sense.
It's one of the most unifying things for our country, right? That everyone suddenly was like, that's not true. You can vote differently, but no one believes that
Nobody
story.
believes
When
it.
there was somebody, I think it was MSNBC coverage at the convention, standing there, with one of the Jeffrey Epstein shirts behind one of these hosts.
Oh, I saw
showing
that.
it, which was great. But, it is crazy to me, and Luke can speak on this probably better than anyone here, the fact that they allowed the FBI to lead the investigation into what actually happened with the Trump assassination attempt. And it's like, we're going to trust the FBI, the same FBI that was in charge of the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping hoax, and amongst so many other hoaxes that we've seen throughout history, potentially even arming gunmen, so many other things. I mean, this is not the organization of the past that took down the mob, that was involved in all these things. They are a corrupt organization. You can't trust these 3-letter organizations to actually do the bidding. They're investigating themselves.
They're
Of course
investigating
gonna find-
parents who go to school board meetings. They're investigating Catholics go to Latin Mass.
It's literally the same FBI that preys on mentally ill people and tries to get them to commit acts of terrorism. It's the same FBI that had victims and children coming to them in the 90s saying that they were hurt by Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, that they ignored for years as they ran an international cover-up operation and were essentially helping him hurt small children in absolutely unspeakable ways. And again, I think the realization is that a lot of people are waking up that the government is capable of horrors that you can't even imagine. And once you realize just how nasty, just how disgusting the federal agencies have become, just how rotted from inside did they become, you lose trust in the institutions, because how can you trust them when they're literally taking your tax dollars and using it to fly to private islands and do unspeakable things to babies too?
And when I said that to the FBI guys, now this will be, think of it at this level I was at. My friend and I pull into a Hardee's drive-through, a guy at noon, coming back from a hunting trip in Iowa. Another car pulls in front of us. One pulls up to the side and one to the back of us. Now, this is in broad daylight. If this had been after it was dark, I would have bashed through them and would have been a high-speed chase. I'd have been looking for a real cop, right? So I get out. I told my buddy, I said, something bad's going down. I got out and I said, who are you and what do you want? They said, FBI. I said, I don't believe you. Show me a badge. He shows me a badge behind his car. This guy, I go, how about you? You got a badge? He shows me. As I said, well, two FBI or bad guys wouldn't carry 2 badges, right? So we pull over, we start talking. And I start chewing them out. This went on for 2 hours. And I'm talking to them, though. 2 guys were from Colorado. And I said, you guys bashed people's doors down, tore people's daughters down the thing by their hair, down the steps, put one daughter out in the front yard, 15-year-old in her underwear. None of them got arrested. It was all a play because of the election stuff, right? Well, anyway, I told these guys, and I go, you guys bashed a door down. And I said, yeah, you didn't knock. It was like 30. And he goes, well, she didn't open her door fast enough. I said it was 32 seconds. Are we all supposed to have timers? Quick, the FBI's here, And,
Do a drill.
Yeah,
like, see
open
how
the door.
quickly get the door.
But what I'm getting at is I told the guys, I said, what you guys are doing is wrong. I said, they go, Mike, we're just doing our job. I go, when it starts to go against your moral compass, I said, what kind of people are you? So what I'm saying, these guys seem like semi-nice guys. I told the one guy, I said, you need to read my book. I witnessed to him about God out there in the court. Finally, they said, we got to go. And I said, you're the ones that stopped me. I filibustered for 2 hours, And they go,
well, you brought up God. They don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. But the point I'm making is it's so corrupt now, I believe, that it's filtered down to other ones that are getting orders to do this job that they know is wrong. I mean, all you guys had to do is come to my office and say, hey, we want your phone. I just said, here, I'll make you a copy. I can have can buy them out. You can buy them at Apple, And they've kept it to this day. I sued the government and the FBI.
They still have your phone.
They still have my phone. I sued the government and the FBI. Nowadays, everything's in. I don't use a computer. Everything's in my phone. And there was stuff on there. My dad had passed, so I couldn't get my grandkids' pictures off there from that. That bugged me more than anything. But the thing of it is, if you're taking it from citizens and doing these as citizens, I had the money to go, and I went all in, took them to court. They got to the 8th Circuit in Minneapolis, and they ruled there. They even asked him, well, why do you still have his phone? Why couldn't you just make a copy? He goes, no, we're going to keep the physical part. This is the government now, or the judges asking them questions, and ask the lawyer for the FBI, why, who's looking through his phone? What about attorney-client privilege? And he says, well, we are. And I'm thinking to myself, so you're like a jury disregard. I just heard that, right? So I guess we're not going to look at this because that's you've already looked at it. It's disgusting. Then I take it to the Supreme Court, and our Supreme Court, on the third thing I brought to him, won't even look at it, because I don't have standing. It's my phone.
Did they really say you didn't have standing?
Yeah, the Supreme Court just wouldn't look at it. They did that on a Tuesday. Our other big case with the machines having encryption keys in them, like having a vault with a bank vault with the combination written on that one there. They denied one on a Tuesday and one on a Friday. So you didn't dismiss 2 Mike Lindell cases in the same day. It was disgusting. I don't know how they just didn't look at it.
This is the same FBI they just become drunk on power. That's how I see it. Is they've let it get to their heads, and the administration, the bureaucracy within the FBI. Like, don't forget, this is the same people that helped perpetrate Waco, Ruby Ridge, and so many other atrocities that we've seen on American people. That kicked down J6ers' doors that weren't even in the building that day, that were essentially just innocent, and they were just there for a rally. And they essentially torture them and then throw them in prison. Right. So there's no justifying any actions of the FBI, and what they've done to you, what they've done to so many Americans is just disgusting. And then you expect them to actually faithfully lead this investigation into an attempted assassination.
When you talk about January 6th, those same FBI guys out in front of Hardee's, I'm demanding. I said, I've been asking Pelosi to come to that little charade at January 6th. I go, is that why you're here? And he goes, no, those are different FBI guys. I go, well, call those FBI guys and tell them I want to go to the parade over there, and I want to talk. I want to talk to those January 6th committee. They wouldn't do it.
What bothers me the most about all of this is that it's done on the taxpayer dollar, right? Mm-hmm. The government charges you to then put you in prison. They endlessly take your money. And like you had mentioned before, you had the resources to fight this to a certain extent. Although I'm sure it was extremely expensive. But
I'm out now.
Well, most Americans can't. I mean, the reality is that they are both paying for their own prosecution and then paying for their own defense because they still have to pay their taxes. Yep. They're still supposed to comply, and the government can just spend endlessly to either print more money or just get more money from whatever agency or branches above them. And again, that ultimately is just robbing the taxpayers on both sides. It's robbing them of their time and their resources.
You bring up another good point that I want to say, that this actually happened to me too, and I made a point of we have something. I know I've been sued for billions by all these machine companies. Well, this judge, like you all seen the video when I called the lawyer a few things, right? And the thing. Well, with that thing,
is this when he questioned your pillows?
Yeah, he questioned my pillows.
That was great.
But it was 9 months. So this case, they sued me in the summer of 22. Now, all the way up to the spring, it was 9 months. We put in, I don't even know the guy. So we put in for a a dismissal, right? If you're not at the scene and you're completely not there, that's why you have the rule of a dismissal. So they can look at that and say, hey, dismiss before you go into all money for discovery and all this other stuff, which the normal person is not going to be able to afford. So this judge, after the lawyer thing back and forth, she goes, you know, a judge is going to see this. I said, well, good for the judge. I got a big problem with Judge Wang, too. I looked into the camera, and on my show I went on that night, she had not ruled on the dismissal, and it was coming up on a year, and she made me go through all these expenses of all this discovery. If it was someone that didn't have the resources, you just got to bow down and say, I'm guilty, or you know, whatever you want from me, take it all. And it was disgusting. So I got on my show and I said, I did this for everybody. I'm going, you know what? This is terrible what you're doing to our country, Judge Wang. If every judge did this, you'd ruin our country. You better make a ruling, and I don't care how you rule, but you ruled tonight, and she did. She ruled the next morning against me, but that's all I wanted. Just make a ruling. That's our first line of defense. If you're not there, if you're innocent, you should be able to put in for that to not go through all the expenses.
I want to jump to the story from the Free Beacon. BlueAnon rears its head. 1/3 of Democrats believe conspiracy theory that Trump staged assassination attempt.
This was my favorite thing today.
Oh, yeah. They say Free Beacon says a conspiracy theory has run unabated in Democratic circles following the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump on Saturday. It posits that Trump staged the shooting for a photo op, that the wound on his ear was caused by something other than an assassin's bullet,
Glass
and that he
or
was
shrapnel?
never in mortal danger. Oh, they're saying he faked it outright.
Yeah.
And that he's covering it up because there's no wound. They're posting fake pictures. Well, they're real pictures, but they're cheap fakes. See, they're real photos, but they're from 2 years ago. We
That's
learned
right.
that word recently. We like that one, huh? It's a baseless conspiracy theory disproven by reams of documentary evidence and eyewitness accounts. And it's a belief held by 1/3 of the Democratic electorate.
Including Joy Reid. I mean, this
Joy
is what
Reid
she was saying
speaking about this today.
Right,
She
and the clip
brought
last
this up.
night. She
Yeah.
said, "Oh, it's awfully convenient. You know, he conveniently stayed on stage for his photo op." I mean, I guess we know she's a blue.
And then what
now.
she says really is, she says, well, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking
Exactly.
questions. And it's incredibly disingenuous. And in fact, Snopes came out today and debunked it and said rumor that shards of glass, not bullet, injured Trump in assassination attempt is false. There was no broken glass from a broken teleprompter because the teleprompters were intact. We all saw that on the video. He didn't get injured from shrapnel. I mean, there's even that amazing photograph from the New York Times reporter where you see this bullet, you know, coming straight for him. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was really stunning.
maybe
And I
the
did
family-
love that all of the MSNBC people are now conspiracy theorists,
Right.
and we should just debunk them for that.
Right. Yeah. Why don't they get sued by the family
Exactly.
of the
That's a
father
really
that's
good point.
the hero
Last
that
time this
covered him
happened,
up?
you
Yeah,
know,
no, I
Alex
think
Jones
that's
was
a really
sued for
good point.
billions.
Don't you think that the Comparatori family
What-
should
They
sue
should just go after
Joy
them.
Reid? Take everything. Take
Well,
it all.
What a disgusting narrative, too. The fact that, you know, an innocent man, a family guy who literally died, Corey Comparator, that was killed by one of these shooters' bullets, you're going to go on and you're going to say that it's staged. So what? Trump was willing to kill his own supporters.
Right.
And, you know, I know a lot of special forces guys, I've talked to them about this, and they're like, to stage something like that is impossible. You can be the best shot in the world, and you're not going to be able to know when Trump makes his mannerism. You're not going to know that exact same time. And then the idea that it's staged, I mean, this is the exact same group, the BlueAnon crowd, that literally says Ashley Babbitt's shooting was fake. I get that all the time, having documented that. It's in my comments every single day. And it's like, you actually believe, you know, yes, the government is evil. They do some evil stuff. But they're so evil that they're literally willing to kill people. And we've seen this throughout history. But the idea that Corey Comparator, you know, he was just essentially a martyr that was made for a fake staging for the sake of getting Trump reelected is absurd. And then the other two innocent Trump supporters that were shot, and it's like they have gone so far off the deep end that there's no bringing them back. They fully embrace this. And I get conspiracy-minded thinking because a lot of the times conspiracies are true. But when you go too far down the rabbit hole, you can't get pulled out. And that's what we see with this BlueAnon crowd.
I think there's a few of those individuals, but I think we also have to understand that a lot of this could be engineered. A lot of this could be fake sock puppet accounts from the government trying to muddy the waters so we don't have a real discussion about what actually happened here. So I don't like to take a lot of these polls seriously. I don't like to take what I see in the algorithms seriously because the algorithms are usually controlled by the intel agencies who are usually releasing fake information, who are usually making people confused and trying to, of course, make people not really understand what really happened.
A couple of these accounts that were pushing the fake, the old photos, the cheap fakes, I'm sorry, they were like new accounts with no followers. Viva was pointing this out. A lot of the big multi-million hits were generic random bot profiles. We don't know who these people
So
are.
it could be. I like what you say.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a psyop
I'm a
within a
marketer.
psyop.
I'm a marketer. You got to think like they do, right? A marketer, and it's all deflection. It's all deflection, and gets So like you say, they're not going to dig into the real thing because they're everyone's worried about them saying, "How dare you say this over here?" One of the best marketing things, you guys, that I seen the evil do. Remember Afghanistan, right? Well, every day they were just hammering on Biden from around the world, right? That's one of the worst things that ever happened. The decisions. Well, what happened? It was like 60 days later. In one day, 90% of the country and the world pointed at something else. You know what that was? If I was their marketer, here's what I would do. On about the 60th day, I think it was, Biden gets up there on stage and he goes, if you have 100 people in your company or more, you got to take the shot. And everyone in the country went, no, we're not. But Afghanistan got forgotten in the news. And not only that, at that time, we were bringing stuff, the attorney generals in this country, I talked to most of them, a lot of us were bringing that, a lot of them were going to bring the big case for the election stuff to the Supreme Court. Their whole focus now had to go to fight that, that if you have 100 people in your company, you got to get a shot. But what if I was to think of their marketing, though, in your theory, that you take all eyes off Afghanistan?
I was reporting in 2006 how the Israeli government was doing it in an official capacity where they were actually admitting it, and there was full-on military units that were stationed in front of government computers there to, of course, argue for the government side. So this was all the way back in 2006. Now imagine what they're doing now with artificial intelligence. Right. Imagine what they're doing now when it comes to gaslighting and manipulating the American public with the latest technological advancements that, of course, could seed different ideas in people's minds and also get them to the conclusion that these intel agencies want them to go along with. So I think a lot of this blue and on stuff is potentially sock puppet accounts, but also potentially larger psyops is being run on people right now to, of course, manipulate them.
Well, it seems like the classic bait and switch. We saw this exact same thing when the Jeffrey Epstein files and all that stuff was dropping and the trial with Ghislaine Maxwell was happening. And then meanwhile, everybody's eyes is on Johnny Depp this, Amber Heard. And so you see this time and time again. It's a tactic that they use, and it's genius because it works.
Yep, absolutely.
But I do think, though, that Joy Reid and some of these others, I think they just really want it to be true that Trump is faking it. Yeah. They think he's a liar. They think that his supporters are liars. They think that we're all liars. And they think that it can't possibly be true, that something could change the narrative that would help Trump win.
I don't know if I believe that all of them think we're liars. I think that a large portion of them know they're lying. So I've shouted out David Pakman in this regard numerous times. Mm-hmm. You look at someone like Kyle Kalinske, who's a liberal guy, and when you talk to him and show him that he was wrong on something, he says, oh, I was wrong on that.
I respect that.
Yeah. I do too. David Pakman, however, I would say doesn't seem to be that kind of person. I challenge him to have the conversation.
It's horrible.
But Libby, just really quick, I just want to make a point for Libby. These media personalities, they are the sock puppets. They are the prostitutes. They're the ones taking orders, being told you're going to say this and this.
I don't think they're
You're
being
like a religious fanatic.
But no, this is my point.
Funny.
My point is, I don't think they're being given orders. In Pakman's case, I know for a fact he reads the news and then chooses not to report what the news is actually saying. So I've seen on a couple of different occasions. He will run a story that is highly selective, but I'm like, the only way you found that news report is if you read all of the news reports, and you're choosing to use one that fits a narrative.
You know what that rotten guy did? This is like 15 minutes after the assassination attempt. He's on his show and he's reporting, well, I think a BB gun could do that. And, we didn't hear, those kind of noises. He was actually talking about that, a fake gun, a pop gun, or a BB gun. I was just sick to my stomach. I almost called him. He's just rotten.
And Hannah, this is not fanatical. This is documented. There's major corporate journalists who admitted, like Udo Ufket from Germany, that said the CIA would come in and literally write my articles for me, and I would just put my name on it.
No,
and
I'm not saying that it's not something that happens. It's just so fascinating to me that there are people who, on every aspect of every issue, will say, no matter what, I believe it this way. And I think you're right. I think that there are really dangerous and scary things that the federal government does and conducts. But I also think that there is a level of, and I think this is especially true with left-wing media pundits, no matter what, they will stick to their story. No matter what, they will view it from their own lens. And we're all guilty of this on some level, but definitely everybody, including people who believe in conspiracy theories, are this way too.
They do not need to go to a journalist and say, you're gonna work for the CIA. We're gonna give you a story. Having worked for some of these companies, it's really simple. they find someone who's posting these things on Twitter at the time when it was Twitter, and they say, hey, would you like a job? They get someone who's already ideologically aligned, or they target people who just want to be influencers. And they say, here's the story. Do you want to write it? They don't need to go to them and say, the CIA is telling you have to write a story this way. If you don't write the story the way they want, for the narrative they want, they just sideline you. They put you in the corner and say, hey, keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to ignore you, and we're going to make sure only the narrative we want gets put on the TV.
Yep.
I remember right after the assassination attempt, I watched it live, and I knew immediately what happened. Clearly, Trump was shot. I mean, when he got up, you saw it all. If anybody with half a brain that watched this, they knew exactly what happened. And so, 10 minutes later, I go to mainstream media. I Google Trump assassination attempt.
Nothing.
And instead, it is ABC, popping noises, CNN, Secret Service ushers him off the stage after he fell. And every single major news media is basically just walking in lockstep, whether it's popping noises, he fell, BB gun. You saw so many different narratives, but not one single news source actually said assassination attempt or somebody tried to kill President Trump.
Because we were covering it that day for the Post Millennial. I was working with one of my editors, Tommy Stevenson, who was, tracking everything in real time. We were looking at everything that was going on. And it was hard to tell. Like, you couldn't get an official record saying assassination attempt. So we kept going back and forth. Should we say assassination attempt? Looks like an assassination attempt. And so finally we decided, yes, let's just say it. And if we're wrong, then we're wrong. But it looks like that, and we're just going to go with it. And I think that over the years, over the past few decades, there have been several instances where legacy media has shown themselves to be completely out of touch. And at each and every one of those steps, you've had independent journalists like you, Savannah Hernandez, Luke, Tim, Hannah Claire, everybody who's doing this kind of work. You see the way that the public trust shifts away from legacy media, which is lying, and to the independent media outlets who are, doing their damnedest to try and tell the truth. Do you guys remember the blogosphere? And all of the legacy media was like, oh, the blogosphere, that's just fake. And it's like, no, they were telling the truth, it turns out. And then the legacy media guys get fired for lying about like Bush Gore and whatever else is going on. And we're having a new moment of that. And it was really wild because on Saturday, I started looking for real news like you, and I couldn't find it. Right. And so I started going to X. I was looking at X for real news, like in the old days when Twitter was what would deliver the real story, where you could find the news on Twitter faster than you could anywhere else. And X, it had a little growing pains. We knew it was going to be better, and it is better now. And it has this, it's back to that. Right. And I think the independent media outlets are really coming into their own and shining again. And I feel really great about that.
Well, and X is definitely like the number one news site in the world.
Again.
Right?
It's there again.
Let me tell you,
there was a minute.
Part of that about X and Suckerbuck's Facebook is there's remember when they always had the false contains false information, covered it up, right? Well, when I came out with the movie Absolute Proof, they even put contains nudity and porn, right? So so all these fake things are on there, these false, contains false information. Well, that was run by his name is Alan Duke. He's got his partner Martin that's overseas in Belgium. This is called Lead Stories. Now they covered up everything, anything had to do with machines or vaccines. Everything was covered up, right? Well, I got to be friends, not friends, kind of in a way indirect friends, because he kept covering up. And one time I put his cell phone up on TV on my show, and he forwarded all the stuff to my phone, and then we forwarded it back. So it was like, stuck. Well, anyway, so we go through, and I said, Alan, I had shirts that said, "Shame on you, Alan Duke," right? Made, and because he covered up everything we needed for our country. Now this is unbelievable. We give him stuff that came out of a machine, election machine, actual images. And I said, Alan, how about we sign an NDA? My lawyers will give this to you. And I said, you can be a hero to the country. Can you imagine the Facebook fact checkers coming out with, it's all true, right? They look into it, they find out it's true. And here's what he said to us and my lawyers. We said, are you going to come out publicly with it? He goes, Mike, we only cover up things that we know are false. We don't go out and report anything other than that. In other words,
they're not responsible for reporting the truth.
So everything you see right now, this is what I said, Alan, the other day. I said, you know what, Alan? So everything I put out right now is true, right? Because they haven't covered anything up for almost a year and a half.
Well, what these guys do, I had made a video around the time of the 2020 election, when there was a alternate slate of electors that were sent. I made a video where the title was something to the effect of, Republican Party sends alternate slate.
Right.
Within the first 10 seconds, I said, these are not the duly elected slate of electors. They called my entire video fake news and flagged it, blocking it on Facebook. And then I hit Facebook because I have contacts, and I said, hey, nothing in this is false. And they go, hey, look, we have nothing to do with it. It's a third party. You got to contact them. So I call them, and I think they called me back. I can't remember. It's been 4 years. Oh. And I said, why did you flag my 100% factually true video as false? And they were like, because you said alternate electors were going. And I was like, the GOP is saying they're sending alternate electors. That's what I said. And the first 10 seconds, I said, these are not the duly elected electors. And they went, you did? And I said, uh-huh. And they went, hold on.
They just
we didn't actually watch the video. We just flagged it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Helpful of them.
Another story that I have back then during the China virus. I'm good friends with Ben Carson, right? And really good friends. And he had come on my Facebook. We put on there. He had actually taken what I had for the supplement to cure the virus. And so he put it up there. He was putting it up on this guy's podcast. We talked about it, and they flagged it, false flag. Now, when we went to Lead Story, this is when I first met Alan Duke of Lead Story, and they looked at it and they go, and what can we talk to Ben? They talked to Ben and say it was all true. Well, the guy had 2 million followers on Facebook. They took away 1.5 million because of that. So he lost 3/4 of his business that he relied on. And these guys, you're right, it's a third party. But now Facebook, so you got the third party here that they hire. But Facebook, whether you're innocent or guilty didn't matter. You got points taken off, in which that was your followers.
And they use it to keep you from speaking, right? I mean, they're trying to deter you from saying anything out loud and also shift the blame between one another.
That's right. That's exactly right.
This happened during COVID for post-millennial, and it was really extreme. We would report on what a scientist had said about COVID. It would be like, this Johns Hopkins scientist said this. And then in the article, we would write, they said this. Then they said this. Then they said this. That was it. That would be the story. The thing they said, right? That is a fact. This scientist said thing. Fact that we're not saying that what he said is accurate. We're not saying that what he said was wrong. And we would get fact checked by these, fake fact checked organizations like Health Life Science or whatever. And then we would get demonetized for a few days. The fact check would impact our traffic for days. It would demonetize our posts. It would make it hard for people to find our stories. And then we would have to appeal it. And every time I would appeal to these organizations that had made themselves up, that were full of their own, misinformation, disinformation, what have you, that were perpetrating that on Facebook. And I would say to them, we said the thing the scientists said. How does that make our story fake?
Well, thank God for Elon Musk. Sorry, Tim, but thank God, because him buying X, imagine the reporting that you would see, the narrative on Twitter. We saw this with the Hunter Biden laptop. People were banned for over a year after this, and were barely reinstated when he bought it. Imagine the reporting you'd see on the attempted assassination attempt on President Trump's life. It would be popping noises.
We would all be hearing that it was glass.
So
that he just fell over.
Mike,
and we would be censored for saying anything else.
Are you familiar with Newsguard? we like to use them and cite them because they're an establishment source for what is credible. So if I pull a New York Times article that disproves some liberal narrative, or Politico, for instance, Politico reported that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election. Politico reported that, and that's Newsguard certified. Well, they claimed that Timcast News was irresponsible because we reported that Donald Trump said a thing. And they asked us, why didn't we fact check the thing he said? And I said, because we weren't running a fact check article. We were saying Donald Trump today said thing. And they're like, yeah, well, the thing he said was false. And I was like, okay, it's a fact that he said it. Too bad. Exactly. They gave us a flag and said we were.
Wow.
I remember
that happened to us repeatedly.
I remember when we were getting Newsguard certified. I hope you don't mind if I tell the story, but they had flagged an article I had written, and it was about a town in New Hampshire that was passing a law to say, like, if you want to use ivermectin, you can. Right. And I had written the article. I quoted the bill. I had said, this is not typically, this is not something that doctors recommend. And I cited a medical organization because you have to have both sides of this issue. And they said it was false information. I remember you telling me later, like, I then highlighted the line underneath that said, this is not something doctors recommend for the treatment of COVID.
And it doesn't matter because even stating that people are recommending it, it's fake. You can't do it. It's irresponsible.
But no one was recommending it. It was just a town in New Hampshire saying, if you want to use it, you can.
Look at the story.
I got to quick tell you this one. And when I lost my Twitter, because I badmouth Jack Dorsey about every day. And anyway, I lose my Twitter. Now, about a year into everybody, there's a fake Mike Lindell up there. And they're letting it up there. And they're saying things like, I'm okay with, the election platforms and so on. And I'm going, what? Well, you try and get that down there. We're reporting, hey, there's a fake Mike Lindell up there. And, of course, they don't want me up there. So what did I do to defend that, to do that? I set up a new account. I put my own account up there. Well, then it went worldwide. I got like 200,000 followers within a half hour. I said, I'm back, everybody. I'm back on Twitter and whatever. So I go up. Well, it's like number one story in the world, right? Or, in the United States. Mike's back on Twitter. He gets banned within 2 hours. But what did they have to do? They had to take down their fake one.
Wow.
You follow me? So
clever.
they took all Mike Lynn's down. So it worked. That's what I got. I'm going, oh, dang. Everyone's going, Mike, you got banned again on Twitter. I go, yes, I did.
Let's jump to this. Let's take a look at these polls we got that are coming out now. So everybody expected that after Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt, his polls were going to jump. However, we started to see some news reporting that no, he's not improving. We see 538 predicting Biden is still the favorite to win in the simulations, but it's unfair. Because these polls need to give people time to absorb the story. So we're not just going to be looking at polls from the 13th. I knew a ton of people on the 13th who didn't even know that this happened to Donald Trump. They were playing games, they were eating dinner, they had no idea what was going on. People on Sunday, I saw people on Sunday who had no idea Trump had just survived. Well, we want to see our polls coming out that have tracked public opinion from Wednesday and Thursday, maybe a little bit of Tuesday. Surprise, surprise, what are we seeing now? CBS News from the 16th to the 18th has Donald Trump up 5 points on Joe Biden. Morning Consult from the 15th to the 17th has Donald Trump up 4 points. Emerson from the 15th to the 16th has Donald Trump up 4 points. And then we have a couple other polls. Reuters has him up 2 from the 15th to the 16th. Forbes has from the 13th to the 15th up 2. I don't think 13th to the 15th is a fair date, because that is the day of the assassination attempt. And the next day, still, many people need to hear the news, which the peak news day is going to be Wednesday. Now we are seeing Donald Trump take a decisive lead. This is already after Joe Biden failed the debate. He was already doing bad. This is exactly what many pollsters were predicting. Frank Luntz said that after this, Trump supporters are going to be Trump voters, and that is the equivalent of a 1 to 2 point poll boost. I was going to say
like
bump,
boop.
and I like
think
boop. Yeah, boop is good.
It's a boop.
Now, think about this. If he's going to get 1 to 2 points additionally, and you've got CBS tracking him 5 points up, so Trump is up 7 points based on that calculation?
Right.
How does he lose? I guess if people don't show up or what?
No, they'd have to steal it. But I'm telling you, we'd have deviations that everybody would go, what do you mean, Donald Trump lost, Ohio, or lost, you're not going to see
West Virginia.
Or
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think Biden's going to win West Virginia. I feel confident predicting
Right,
that,
right.
or whoever they put in.
Right.
I mean, I think part of it is if people don't turn out to vote. That's always the problem with elections, especially if conservatives or Republicans think they have it in the bag, they tend to stay home.
And you got to realize what's going to happen, everybody. I got a new thing out. I'm telling everyone to get their mail-in ballot and don't open it when you go to vote on the day you go in. If they say you already voted, you say, no, I haven't. That's a new thing we'll have. It's identity theft, which I believe out there, Lindell.
clever.
I think it's a great idea.
It is a great idea. That's at lindellplan.com, by the way. I think everyone in the country should do it. And but the other thing that's going to happen is, let's say I'm working for them, and I'm going to say, okay, everyone's worried about all the illegals voting and and all this cheating going on. But what happens is, if you pull your name off those dirty voter rolls, Wisconsin's the worst in the country. There's 7 million names on the voter rolls here in Wisconsin. If everybody voted that could register, as 4.2 million. Why would you have an extra 3 million names? But let's just say that everybody goes out and votes or whatever and does everything that you're supposed to do. If you grab that mail-in ballot and you get there and they deny it, but too big to rig, the president's calling it. What's going to happen is, if they go to steal this, they're going to have to, it's like a teeter-totter. You're adding votes to this side, right? I don't care where it comes from, mail-in boxes, whatever. Every state would be like Pennsylvania, where they had more votes than voters. I just got in an argument with the CNN at the convention here 2 days ago, they were shadowing me. I let Washington Post, CNN, and the New York Times shadow me for 3 days. I loved it, right? It was, and no, I really did. They came out with a great article too, by the way. But I said, you guys, I said, man, Pennsylvania didn't have more votes than voters. I said, yeah, look it up. Yeah, they did. That even made the news, and they certified. So
that's why Texas sued, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly why they did. So but they didn't have standing. Remember,
right.
no standing. We learned all these names, standing and sanctions. I asked for a voting machine in my cases, and you know what? The judge sanctioned me $23,000 just for asking. How dare you ask for evidence?
We've got this. This is actually pretty big news. In Virginia, the Real Clear Politics average has Donald Trump winning. And so this is fascinating because the previous aggregate has Virginia as, this is a likely Democrat, not even lean Democrat. The Real Clear Politics average now has Virginia going Republican. Arizona and Nevada already are. Pennsylvania now, he's up 5 points. I think we've got this in 7. He's up in 7 swing states. I think we have, let me try and find, here we go, a 5-point lead in Pennsylvania after the assassination attempt. So at this point, Trump no longer even needs Wisconsin or Michigan to win.
That is wild.
But he's going to win them anyway.
Turn Minnesota red there, please.
Upsetting, Mike.
Let's be real. Take a look. Minnesota is only leaning Democrat. Right. If the internal polls that got leaked are true, then Biden is absolutely sinking.
There we go.
So that would mean New Hampshire. That would put New Hampshire and Nebraska fully red. And even CNN made that assessment. Now, of course, without New Hampshire, CNN made the assessment that New Hampshire will likely go to Donald Trump. And they predicted this map, 330 electoral votes for Donald Trump as of the polling and the standing right now. If we believe that the internals are as bad as they say, if we add the assassination attempt boosting Trump's polls, the voter turnout boost, as well as Joe Biden's debate failure, Minnesota could very well be leaning Republican right now as well. Mm-hmm. We could be looking at a 340 electoral count scenario for Donald Trump. However, because I just said that, and now everyone thinks they're going to win, they don't show up, and Democrats win 500 electoral votes.
I hope the down ticket candidates are really able to use the forward momentum that we have right now with Trump to boost their elections. Because, if and I hope he does, if President Trump wins the White House in November, it would be a shame if we don't send him in with a Congress and a Senate that can support his legislation, right? I think there is I think we put our eyes on Donald Trump, and I think that's wonderful, but we have to remember what happens down ticket.
Right.
If we don't continue to work on the houses, give perhaps a wider majority there, and if we don't have more power in the Senate, it's just going to inhibit potentially anything that could start to shift the country in a direction. I mean, for me, the big question is illegal immigration, right? We need a Congress that will support efforts to restrict illegal immigration.
That's exactly right, and it all comes from our elections. And what has our great real president said at his rallies? He says, when I get in, he says 3 things, and I'm gonna tell you what they are, and you tell me, I'll tell you what gets the biggest applause. When I get in, I'm going to drill, baby, drill. I'm going to build that wall, and I'm going to get us to same-day voting, paper ballots, hand counting. The third one gets the biggest applause. We have the worst election platforms in the world. Many countries, I believe it's 17, I'll have Alan Duke fact-check this, 17 countries that have outlawed computers in their elections. Many other countries have outlawed early voting and mail-in voting. We have the worst election platforms because of the virus that we got, and made all these illegal things that were put in, that the Secretary of State's put into all these states, that now they became the status quo. And that's what we've been fighting in every state. So once we get in, that's why it's so important. I told our real president, we were talking, I said, you say this, I've been fighting for same-day voting and all this stuff and paper ballots hand counted for 3.5 years. By the way, the RNC, I want to say it, the RNC a year ago put out a resolution, same-day voting, paper ballots, hand-counted, signature ID at precinct level. That's a perfect world if we can get there, okay? So I told our real president, I said, you're going to need all the people behind you, including, like you say, Congress, the Senate. You need all them behind, but plus all of us as people. And that's why that plan for everybody to grab their mail-in ballot. And when you get there, can you imagine in your county, you hear of 10 people that went to vote? Did you hear Joe and Amy? They went to vote. And they said they already voted. They had their ballot. And if you get this in all 50 states, this is like a campaign thing, like for after the fact. We want everyone in the country. I even want Democrats to go, how do you explain identity theft? It becomes identity theft if somebody takes your credit card or whatever. People can wrap their head around that, where it's hard to imagine what went on in computers and drop boxes and all this. But boy, when it happens to somebody your family member, your neighbor, or someone in your town, this is why we really need this. We need this for after the fact to get to where our election platforms are secure. And the best example to the world, rather than the worst of every single country in the world, we have the worst right now.
Mike, does Donald Trump use a MyPillow?
Yes, he does. He also uses the Giza Dream Sheet. His favorite product is the sheets. Okay. What's the promo code here?
Tim.
That's right. No, he really does. He loves the Giza Dream Sheets.
Mike,
he doesn't sleep much on that pillow, on my pillow, but when he does, it's quality.
I got a question for you. 538 right here says, and this is the latest, I just refreshed this. Yep. Biden wins 52 times out of 100. Trump wins 48 times out of 100, despite the fact that Democrat leadership has called for him to resign. It's been reported that he's already told campaign officials he's going to be leaving, that many prominent Democrats are saying he will be stepping down. Of course, he is denying it. I'm wondering, with all of the swing state polls, with CNN saying he's at 330 electoral votes, in what reality is 538 predicting a 52% chance Biden wins?
Inside information?
Right?
It's the Biden campaign being like, keep those numbers up. We're not leaving.
Or it's the shadow campaign?
I don't know. I mean, I think there is this internal, there's a breakup between the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee, and the mainstream media right now, because mainstream media is putting out some numbers that the Biden campaign, like people in the Biden campaign who want him to stay in because they want more time in the White House, will say, look, we can win, right? 538 says we can win. And then there are all kinds of top Democrats who the media wants to have a positive relationship with, who are going to say, stop doing this. We need him to drop out.
Maybe the issue is that they're not polling illegal immigrants. I don't know, Mike. How
would we know? Because we never document them.
Mike, did we talk about this last time? The Help America vote verification story we have right here. Have you seen this one? We may have talked about it last time you were on. I'm not sure if we did.
No, I did not.
This is the to login.gov. Huh? This is the Social Security Administration's website, SSA.gov. A program they have called Help America Vote Verification. This story broke several months ago, I think around March, and it has we've never received adequate answers as to what's going on. According to the Social Security Administration, this tracks individuals who register to vote but do not have an ID. So what happens is then the MVA or the DMV will take the registration and submit the last four of their Social Security numbers with their names and date of birth. The SSA will then verify if that person exists in the SSA database. Here we can see in the week ending June 13th, Arizona had 53,621 registration attempts by people with no IDs. Somehow, 10,000 of them were not in the Social Security Administration database. 50 were dead. I seriously wonder how 50 people tried to register to vote. I don't know.
Right.
We've seen these numbers. It's millions. Right. For that week, there were just about 200,000 people, and 71,000 did not come up as a match in the SSA system. Right. We don't know what this is. There's a couple different theories. One is when the illegal immigrants come to the country, they're given work permits, which give them a Social Security number, and then when they are filling it out, it default. They go to get an ID or something. They get a default voter registration, which then gets submitted and rejected. Another theory is that someone is going through college databases for Social Security numbers and names, submitting them for registration. And what's happening is many of these students at universities are foreign students. That's why they're coming back with no match. Mm-hmm. It may be, and I don't know, I'm just saying a couple of hypotheses. Someone is trying to register non-citizens, and many of them haven't gotten in the system yet, or knowing that young people aren't registered to vote, ballot harvesting is not going to work, knocking on dorms, knocking on dorm room doors. So if someone goes in surreptitiously and registers on their behalf without these people knowing, the universal mail-in vote will arrive at their domicile. And then when the activist shows up and knocks on the door, they say, oh, hey, look, you got a ballot. You were registered, I guess. Why don't you hand that to me?
Right. Well, there's so many theories that go along with this, but this is what surprised me. When you talk about voter rolls, in the summer of 21, when I started going around to every Secretary of State, and I bought every voter roll in the whole country. I bought them all. $40,000 I paid for Alabama. So I paid $40,000 for Alabama. I go to meet their Secretary of State, another uniparty Republican named John Merrill. Here I have his voter rolls that came right out of the machines. And I said, John, there's 4,662 people here in Alabama that voted that were over 110 years old. And John looks at me and he says, Mike, we live pretty good here in Alabama. And I thought he was kidding, but like, you see stuff like this and it's like, why aren't we looking at these things and finding out? You got all kinds of theories of where these can come from, but they got to be looked into, and it's like, we've got to clean up our voter rolls. We've got to clean up. This is all part of our elections. So whether you're using illegals or whether you're using just fake names or people that have been deceased, you guys realize that the reason I got involved in all this was in November and December of 2020. I looked at every every county, different counties, a lot here in Wisconsin, but I looked at states too, like Nevada. And what surprised me the most was everyone I looked at had people voted that didn't live in that county. Okay. And I go, people are genuinely good people. I couldn't imagine 5,000 people coming from Minnesota. I go, all right, who's with me? Let's go commit a crime and go into Wisconsin and vote for Biden. And so what they're doing and what they're, it's a very, people say, well, what is going on, Mike? And I say, there's so many things. There's so many theories, but it's got to be looked into.
In the week ending February 17th, Missouri had 78,421 registration attempts without an ID. 23,253 people were dead.
Yeah, there you go. That's a perfect
How are
example.
dead people trying to register to vote?
Right.
Now, by all means, some people have suggested this is an attempt at voter roll cleanup, which would mean they're abusing the SSA system.
That's right. You guys, I want to say something really positive. It just happened about 5 hours ago. It was ruled in Colorado, and you guys might not think this is big, but this is huge. The genesis of My Cause of America in Colorado, right after the election, a group of people went around got the voter rolls, and they went around to people's houses that said 6 people voted from the house, knocked on the doors and said, how many, do these people live here? And they said, no, only I do. So then you take the other 5 and you take it off roads. Well, who are these 5 people? You come across the dead people, you come across people that don't live there. It's called canvassing, okay? This group did it, and then in the summer of 22, after I got involved with them and stuff, my name's right in the article today, a conspiracy theorist, Mike Lindell, but it's all over the AP News. A judge just ruled, they took them all to court and said that they were harassing people, and it would have took away canvassing forever. If that case was lost, you would never be able to go out and really physically check on the stuff like this. Well, they won today. A judge ruled they absolutely had every right to do that. And so that's huge. It really is. So at least we have one way to validate stuff like this.
Do you think voters in America have lost the same kind of fervor to hold election officials accountable? I feel like coming out of 2020, people felt really strongly this was a major issue. And I wonder if in the last 4 years they have, become increasingly dedicated to the cause, or if they've sort of drifted away.
I have over 300,000 people in all 50 states. I do a call every Monday to all their leaders. So there's people out there that haven't given up, and it keeps growing and growing as the country has been destroyed with our economy and fentanyl pouring in and all these things happening. The worse it gets, the more people are jumping on board. So I believe it's the opposite. People are jumping on board. They know we get one shot. And people that say, well, Mike, you keep telling people that they're not even going to go vote, so what's the use? No, this is the one time you get, if you can't convince even a Democrat, like I went in Chicago, this is your time to get out there, and you should be able to win every argument there is. They're not all they're not all completely brainwashed on the left over there. Their eyes are getting open, and this is the time to do it. And everyone, I like it. What do you say, Tim? Like 1 or 2%? That's just a lift on voters that might not have voted. They're Republicans, but now they're motivated to vote. Their motivation is there. The end game here, everybody, needs to get to the best election platforms in history, because that protects us after Donald Trump, okay, and protects the down tickets. We've got to get to, I have talked to Germany, France, the UK just had an election. Paper ballots hand counted. 5 years they didn't like the status quo. They just voted them out. People always say, we shouldn't have term limits. If we really had fair elections, you want to vote people in more and more that keep performing right? You keep them, you vote out the bad. And we took every single country that I talked to, and we learned best practice. We have the system. It was developed in Missouri by the guy who works for me named Linda Rand. We've used this in our country in Osage County, Missouri. We used the hand counting system. It got done at the same time in the machines. This was in 22. 100% accuracy with Democrats and Republicans working together. It was amazing. And then you had, but it only takes one judge. When you tip, look at Argentina. One judge said, hey, we're going to go to paper ballots, hand counting. They switched their whole country over in 4 months. They beat the Netherlands. So, when we get through this, that's why I can't say so much the importance of protecting your ballot, going in and getting that identity theft thing that we have. Because after Donald Trump wins, his whole focus one of his whole focus, he'll have a lot, believe me, but one of them will be to make us the best, secure our election platform. Our government deemed our elections critical infrastructure, and we've got to treat them like the most critical. We're coming into an age, we talked about AI and all this stuff, artificial intelligence and all this stuff that's going on out there. Who do you want regulating that? The evil that's out there, or people that have the people's backs? Because that stuff's got to get regulated.
Do you think that right now it's the states determine how voting works in their states, right? It's not like federally regulated how voting works.
There's a lot of different things. Like our UACAVA votes, by the way, that's our military overseas. That Obama changed that. It used to be 45 days for your mail-in vote, but now they can do it all by email. No accountability. 98% of it was done by email.
And we have some states where it's like 100% mail-in voting.
Yeah, like Utah, 100%.
Colorado,
They just
Utah.
it's all. Yeah, it's all.
Do you think that it should be federally regulated?
No, it should not be federally regulated. It should be down to the precinct level, and everybody should be accountable for their own election. There's so many things.
But it should be paper ballots. You think it should be paper ballots across the board?
Paper ballots, hand counting with cameras. You watch your ballot go through. There's my ballot. You want to audit? You rewind the tapes. It's very simple. You've got to go back to deregulate. It's precinct level where everybody knows. I could see in this room in this town. Well, you can't do it with the big towns. We did in the 90s. We did in the 80s when I grew up.
Yeah,
I never voted, but I was a crack cocaine addict. But
You haven't mentioned that yet.
I think the big challenge we have right now is the unknown unknowns. And just a week ago, someone tried to take the life of Donald Trump. We should really try and consider the ramifications of what would this country and this world look like. Viva Frei in the show said it would be like Franz Ferdinand. International conflict would erupt immediately. But my concern is, having thought about it, should Donald Trump have lost his life, the RNC is in disarray. Nikki Haley becomes the nominee. The Democrats now have a chance to do whatever weird games they want to play. But I think we'd be looking at total lockdown in some capacity. The Democrats right now, with their primary system that they're proposing, this brokered convention, bypasses the primary process. We are dangerously close to a North Korea-style government where a single political party says we're going to vote in secret for who the nominee should be, and the American people have no say in this. And if Donald Trump lost his life and the RNC became chaos, then we would be governed by secret political party ballots in a closed process the American people have no say in. We're still dangerously close to that.
Absolutely.
If Donald Trump does not win in November, and he does not, and it's not just him, it's down ballot. And I will stress this too. I don't even think it's necessarily the 100% about Donald Trump. We're talking about down ballot in Congress. That's really what we need to see, and the state level. If we do not have congressional victories, we may still be looking at a system by which your political leaders are chosen by the party. And what? The Republicans just remain the Washington Generals to the Democrats' Globetrotters.
Right.
Do you know there's some states that have, I won't name the two, but there's 2 states that tested your voting with texting in your vote. Now you think about that.
That's a terrible idea.
You think?
Isn't somebody?
Well, wait a minute. Tim Cook said that you can't break into an Apple phone, but.
We have an issue where someone put out a meme.
I just want to bring up a hypothetical.
Luke,
here.
who was it who put up the meme? that said text your vote. Who was that? I forget his name.
Douglas Mackey. We had him on my show last week.
He's a fascinating
he's
case.
Still fighting his case. He's not asking for a pardon because he wants it to be dealt in a Supreme Court case where people could actually meme without facing the full brunt of the FBI.
Obviously.
But people on the left actually committed similar memes, and they were never held
Christina
responsible
Wong,
for them.
not held responsible.
So shouts out to Douglas Mackey. I did a 2-hour-long interview with him. Definitely go check it out. It's critically important. It's up on youtube.com/wearechanged. But hypothetically, I wanted to ask all of you guys here. Let's just say that they fortify this year's election. Let's just say Joe Biden wins. What's your reaction and what's next?
El Salvador.
It's going to be a long commute to the
Stop
studio.
telling people our plan. Come on. Everyone's going to be in El Salvador now, damn it.
I would say that the only way he wins is if they would do what they did in 2020.
Exactly. Let's say
and
they
nobody
do
would
it.
accept
Yep.
that. And I
And then
believe
what
that
happens
judges.
next? Yep.
I believe now because people think that all the evidence, everything was looked at. No, nobody's looked at the evidence. One judge in Georgia. This is going on right now. Where last fall, the judge said, this is 3.5 years, this curling case against Rassenberger. 3.5 years went on. She finally said, the experts looked in these machines and said that there's problems. So, and she said, and she also ruled, if you do question the machines, you're not a conspiracy theorist. I got to take off my tinfoil hat on TV. It was great. Well, that case went to court on January 9th. This is an Obama-appointed judge. A guy hacked in with a pen, flipped the election in 5 minutes. She's still sitting on that ruling. There's so many things
Still
out
to this
there.
day. Still to this day?
Still to this day. She's trapped. She's really trapped. I would not want to be her. If she rules that she has to rule these machines, you got to get rid of them, right? Because you did it right in front of her.
How many years has it been?
No, the case she sat on it and it just sat for 3.5 years. This was the Haldeman report that they hid from the public. CISA hid it from the public. But then this judge finally, for last fall, said, okay, the case is going to move forward. So the whole case went in January 9th to January 18th, and then she hasn't made her ruling. She's got to make her ruling, but she'll probably wait till after the election. What I'm saying is that this time around, with all the deviations, it's like everybody, I could sit here and go through all the deviations of the 2020 election. But if they did take it, like you say, if Biden won it, the only way is if they did those things again, all of the things, and it would be so many deviations. Where the public, judges are people too. They have friends, family, or whatever. They've seen the destruction of our country right now. Now, if we didn't have all this bad stuff that has went on, I believe that would be a lot harder to have everything. No, we're going to really look at this election if they do take it. Then it's going to be now. Everyone's going to demand to look at it. They ask me, CNN or whatever, they go, now, if Donald Trump doesn't win, are you going to question the election? I go, I'm going to question it whether he wins or not. And they say, but no, seriously, because that's where we're at. They asked me, they said, Mike, this was on Jimmy Kimmel. He said in the spring of 21, he said, Mike, would you still be questioning it if Donald Trump had won it? And I said, absolutely I would. I would still be sounding the alarm. Then when I ran for RNC chair and I only got 4 votes, everybody remember that? Well, the Rasmussen poll came out the night before, and I doubled Harmeet and Ronna combined. The next day, I get 4 votes. Remember, 168 vote for that. Jimmy Kimmel goes to me, he goes, Mike, he goes, you only got 4 votes. He goes, what do you feel about it? I go, Jimmy, once again, our politicians win against what the people wanted, right, in the poll. And he goes, well, do you think it was a fair election? I said, absolutely. It was paper ballots, hand counted.
I hope you got to keep all 4 of the ones that came, all the paper ballots. Right. Just frame them.
Yeah, framed them. I got 4. But the bottom line is they've asked me, I wouldn't trust any election done nowadays with computers and stuff. There's always going to be cheating in elections, but with the multiplication, even what if it's just a mistake? This lady in Georgia, a Democrat, a year and a half ago, 3 Democrats ran in Georgia, and she got 0 votes in her own precinct, everybody. Her and her husband lived there. I said, boy, if the bad guy should have gave her 2, then I said, sorry, ma'am, nobody loves you but your husband.
She got 0.
She got 0.
She didn't vote for herself?
Her husband was also like, I don't believe this.
But then if they'd have gave her 1 vote, they'd be in divorce court. But they gave her 0.
So what was her response?
So they had to look into it because it was too big big of a deviation.
Right.
Okay. They looked into it. She really had 3,160 votes. They put her from third to first. They did this all in 2 days. Now, 3 counties over. Here's the best one. 3 counties over, another Democrat, 3 Democrats. She gets 4,680 votes. Ready for this? She wasn't on the ballot, and she wasn't a write-in. She had said she was running 2 months prior, and she backed out, right? So now they're trapped. Wow. They're going, what do we get? And this didn't hit the media. Our teams knew about it. The one with 0 votes did. You can look that one up at just local media. So here, Brad Rassenberger, the uniparty crooked Brad in Georgia, the Secretary of State, his office gets involved in this, right? And they look into it. They make a report 3 days later. They caught all 4,660 votes were going to this candidate that really was the winner. So they gave it to him. Now he won instead of the other gal, because if you took his votes away, this gal won. And he said they called it a programming error. So we sent them a thing. We sent old Brad a thing and said, that's great, Brad, a programming error, but I want to talk to the guy that typed that person's name in. Typed her name in. And why are our elections getting programmed? So all these things, you guys, we have everything. We have more evidence from here to the sun. But we need people, judges to step up, and politicians to step, and just people to step up. And I really think by everybody requesting your ballot, when you get in there and they say you've already been voted for, if everybody knows someone, you're going to question. Let's find out why that happened.
So if Donald Trump wins in November, and we get through the lawsuits or whatever it is that happens, down ballot Republican. Let's say Republicans win the Senate, the House, and the presidency. What do you think next March starts to look like?
Next March, I think the first thing that we've been doing is that once he's there is get in there and trying to get everything pushed through to get rid of the electronic voting machines, get paper ballots, get same-day voting, a day of voting. And by the way, one of the biggest things that they fight this with is the handicap. All these states. Well, the handicap got to have this, machine.
Accommodation.
Well, yeah. Well, California had believe it or not, in California, it's easier there than some of the red states. California, they have the best way to do it. You come in, and here's a person, you got to sign like a notary that you trust that person to see your vote. That's it. Very simple. I was down in Louisiana at a Senate hearing, and I had this lady go, Mike, I trust machines much more than my vote is. I'm handicapped. My vote is really confident. That's where I want my confidence to be, or it's more confident. And I said, do you hear that, Tim Cook? That's the CEO of Apple. And anyway, she looked at her. She didn't look very handicapped. And I said, there's so many kinds of people handicapped. If you have no arms, I couldn't see or whatever. There's so many different things. I said, what are you going to peck your ballot? I mean, there's just so many things that are handicapped. I said, you have to have a system that works for everyone. And that's the real person that you sign off that can see, or you bring someone, your relative in that can do it for you if you can't hear or whatever the handicap is. But they use that against us getting to to the best election platforms we can get to. They use that against us in every state.
So here's what we're going to do now. For this special live show, we have a musical performance coming up, a couple songs for you from Rachel Holt. As we're setting up, we're going to read a couple super chats, play some music, then we're going to go back to super chats. And then for those of you that are members, we're going to do audience Q&A as well as some member Q&A. Maybe only a couple calls. I don't know how easy it would be I don't actually know if we can do member calls because I don't know if the audience would be able to hear it. But I will also then stress Donald Trump is expected to be speaking in a half an hour as well. So I hope you are all paying attention to that, because it would be, let's just say, quite stupid of me to try and claim that, we're going to pull you guys away from hearing the man give his first major speech following the assassination attempt. But we'll read some super chats from you guys right now while we're setting up for this musical performance. We got Scooby Dragon, who says, howdy people. Howdy to you, good sir. And let's grab this. We got Barely a Millennial, who says, why is Kim Cheadle at the RNC? It's certainly not to answer questions. To add insult to injury, I'm not sure I want her anywhere near Trump. Should she resign, be criminally charged, or ostracized, or what? Do we ignore this?
I mean, even if she resigns, we still need the answer. So maybe if, having her be part of the government is the only way to get her to comply, that's one thing. Lauren Boebert has an initiative or a proposal out to cut her salary while this is going on. And I think that's sort of punishment. Something failed. A lot of people who have been, police officers or else, if you get suspended without pay, you're still technically, a part of it. You have to come in and answer questions, but you are being punished for a failure. And I think some kind of immediate consequence is needed.
There should be a criminal investigation.
Yep.
And nothing less.
We have this from Draconian Debate. He says, we built a site to track details about July 13th. Check out july13th.com. I absolutely will. That'll be very interesting. Polly Puree says, Rachel Maddow said that old Joe called her a couple days ago and said, no way he is quitting. I agree with Hannah. It's Hannah Claire. But I wonder how much of this is Joe Biden doesn't want to drop out. His family doesn't want him to drop out. But prominent Democrat officials keep saying he is to force the narrative, so he has no choice but to drop out.
That's what I would think.
I think it's going to be very interesting to watch the Biden family fight with the infrastructure of the Democratic Party, right? I mean, they don't want him to go. I said the other night, I think as long as he has a pulse, he will be vying for another 4 years in the White House. Whether he'd be able to complete those 4 years remains unseen.
Golden Fleece Game says, if Biden leaves, who will Harry Sisson simp over? Lord help me. He tweeted earlier, I can't wait to vote for Joe Biden.
Whoever
And
they tell him to.
I said, are you going to do a write-in?
No, I think he's going to move on to Kamala if, she's the up and next coming, because it's just the talking points.
I can predict his tweet. He's going to say, thank you, Joe Biden. It is commendable that you are stepping aside to help a younger generation. It is the honorable and intelligent strategic move. You're so smart. I love you so much. That's what he's going to tweet.
You just gave him the tweet idea. There you go.
No, he had it. He didn't need me to say that. All right. The Quartering. Super Chat saying, chilling at the Fiserv, holding Luke's spot. It's definitely not totally awesome with open bar, free food, and Trump.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Make me jealous.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Matthew Schneider says the problem with the DNC replacing Biden without going through Kamala is their candidate would forfeit Nevada, Wisconsin, and Georgia. The deadline to replace the candidate on the ballot passed. It almost feels like they never planned on winning in the first place. And I know Luke mentioned this, but we did talk about this like 6 months ago. Like maybe they've just resigned to the fact that they're going to lose and their plan is going to be deep state shenanigans.
Yeah, I think they're so used to cheating and getting their way that they're not actually a good party. Like they're not actually organized or strategic. It's not surprising me that they missed deadlines.
Well, they're really good at procedural victories and not legitimate ones. Or I should say not above board, right? If the rules of the game are we're all going to go out and make our argument to the American people to convince them to cast a ballot for me. What the Democrats hear is, so we just need more pieces of paper than you? And you're like, well, no, you're supposed to convince people. I'll just get a bunch of pieces of paper. Yeah. Well, and then they show up with the pieces of paper and we say, okay, I guess.
I described him as a desperate, dangerous animal that just became that much more desperate a couple days ago.
Well, I don't think there's any reason to, attempt to cheat or to kind of rig this election because they know it's already lost. And then you look at, voter integrity. Mike Lindell does a bunch on this, obviously the most out of anybody. In my mind, the perfect way to restore voter integrity, especially amongst the right where people are most skeptical, is, look, Trump won in almost a landslide. Look at these numbers. And then they're essentially preparing for deep state shenanigans to sabotage Trump in the current administration that he's going to be in. And then 2028, they throw Newsom up, who is most likely going to be the candidate. And then that's really where you start seeing.
You just said my biggest fear is that they wouldn't do any cheating and just let nature take its course, because then we would be harder to get back to the.
And then we're once again the conspiracy theorists come 2028. Yep.
Dustin Hefker says, I have to say it, y'all have been getting it wrong. Biden only got Obama's VP pick because his original pick got caught cheating and Biden was the fill-in. It was no secret that Obama did not want Biden from the beginning. Who was his first pick?
I don't remember that.
Oh, look, I don't know.
We'll say he has never liked Biden.
I mean, I don't think he ever wanted Biden.
I thought they were thicker than thieves.
I thought the narrative was that they chose Joe Biden because they were concerned older Democrats wouldn't vote for a black man. And so they needed an older white guy to convince them.
A lot of people expected Hillary to be the VP as well.
Interesting. No, but this is true. It was a big narrative at the time that we're talking about the first black president, and they were concerned that there's going to be a lot of older people who are racist, who won't vote. And so they said, well, bring in Joe Biden, the old white guy, and we can have him go out there and calm them down.
Right.
And that's why I think Michelle Obama is not the shoo-in that Republicans think she is. And Republicans are exposing themselves as not being racist by thinking she can win. Because Republicans are like, oh, I don't know, Michelle Obama, she's a celebrity wife of a popular president. And it's like, no, you misunderstand. These older Democrats are racist and won't vote for a black woman. They knew that at the time with Barack Obama. That's why they brought in Joe Biden. And with Kamala Harris as VP and they can't get rid of her, what do? Harris, Michelle, Obama? Like, none of that works. So Michelle is not the viable candidate they think she is. And then you're looking at Whitmer, Newsom. What, they're going to throw away their future political careers for this?
Probably not.
All right, I guess we're ready to hear this song by Rachel Holt. How's it going to be? We're ready to go? All right, well, let's get them out here. Are they ready? Yeah, they're coming. Oh, they're coming. Welcome. So introduce yourselves. If you want to introduce yourselves in the song and explain what it's about, and let's hear it. Before you guys start, do you want to just give us a brief introduction as what the song is?
Okay, so we put this song out on June 21st. Actually, we did a show on it with Tim around the time it came out. I don't know if any of you watched it, but Chris wrote this song. It's called I Was Gonna Be.
And it's from the, well, you'll hear who it's from.
Yeah. Yep. Some don't believe I'm a living soul, just a bad mistake that needs to go. If my mama could have just seen my face, maybe she would have had me anyway. And there are those who speak for me, fight for lives that they can't see. But there are some who only mourn this life of mine if I were born. And all I wanted was a chance to learn to love and laugh and dance. Oh, but I was gone before I arrived, sent back to heaven on a starlight flight. Yeah, I was going to change the world, and I was going to be a girl. The first thing I was gonna do was breathe and fall in love with you. But a couple of weeks before I saw the light, I'd figured out when you changed your mind. All I wanted was a chance to learn to love and laugh and dance. Oh, but I was gone before I arrived, sent back to heaven on a starlight flight. I was gonna have some pretty curls, and I was gonna be a girl. Well, I'm more than just some one-night stand or some burden that you think I am. And there ain't no man who's ever gonna be what I was gonna be. Some don't believe I'm a living soul, just a bad mistake that needs to go. Thank you.
And you guys had one more song. Did you want to play you played a second song? Yeah. What was the song you played? The second song you played last time?
That was Ammunition.
Ammunition. That one's great. Yeah. Let's hear that one.
This will be the next single out, I think.
Okay. Actually, we should dedicate this to Donald Trump. We'll dedicate this to Trump.
In your movie, I'm always the villain. While I'm getting hurt, you're playing the victim. You're hating on me like it's your religion. So go ahead and do your best. Do your best. Bring it, knock me, tear me, rock me, mow me down. Load your words, take your aim, and take me out. Keep on shooting and missing if it makes it feel strong, and I'll keep stocking up on ammunition. Every war you start, every wall you're building is like a bullet in a gun off a suicide mission. Well, how's it feel to be a warden in your own prison? All the bitter things that you do are gonna come back on you. So bring it, knock me, tear me, rock me, mow me down. Load your words, take your aim, and take me out. Keep on shooting, missing if it makes you feel strong. And maybe one day you'll get a taste of your own ammunition. You can only fire so many times till you hear the click of what you did, and then it's my turn. Oh, it's my turn. So bring it, knock me, tear me, rock me, mow me down. Load your words, take your aim, and take me out. Keep on shooting, missing if it makes you feel strong, and I'll keep stocking up on ammunition. On ammunition.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was great. We got about 15 more minutes to round out these super chats before we go to the members-only show with audience Q&A. And I'll jump to Messy108. Before I do, shout out once again to Rachel Holt, who just performed. That was absolutely fantastic. Messy108 says, can you talk about David Pakman and Destiny's dehumanizing behavior of those that disagree with them and how they shouldn't lose their humanity? Well, I can't speak too much to, I don't know what David Pakman has been saying about the recent tragedy. Destiny, though, a lot of people are saying that he's rage farming, and certainly his name has now come up because of this. He's absolutely disingenuous. We had a discussion about, for those that aren't familiar, it's a liberal pundit. He celebrated and glorified the death of the firefighter. He said anybody who died in this way, he offered to send people to the next event as if to insinuate he would send them to their death as well. And I said we would never have him on this show again. And it's not because I have a personal beef with him. I have no problem telling these things to him to his face. It's that we'd be banned in 2 seconds if he came on this show and started saying those things. I guess he took issue with that, but he also got banned from Kick for saying exactly this, so it proves my point. And he tried to claim that Laura Loomer said worse things than him, which is just absolutely not true. And even when Laura Loomer on the show did say she thought the death penalty after conviction was warranted, we took that show down because we don't want people espousing these kinds of. I think it goes a bit too far, and it's rhetorical escalation that I'm not interested in. But also, you get banned for it. So he's taking issue with the fact that many people now. Well, I don't want to get into it. I mean, just from what I've heard outside of what we've said, there's others who have said similar things. You invite a guy on who glorifies death and laughs about it. He's going to spike your show on these platforms. This is not. This is not something that people want to engage in political discourse. If you do, perhaps Pierce Morgan, he had him on his show. Fine, if you're doing a private, members only subscriber based thing. But I don't know. Some people are saying he's rage farming. I think he's just nuking his career. I don't know if you guys have an
you know what? I'm happy to hear that. He used me. He attacks me every day for the last 3 years to gain followers. That's
Destiny
all he
does?
That's what he does. David Pacman.
Pacman. Well, that was Destiny, but Pacman also.
Yeah.
Well, Destiny,
I'm
Destiny
talking about
is
Pacman. I'm sorry.
very calculated with everything that he does. I mean, there's no denying that he is very smart. But when you take it to this extent, and that's exactly what he's doing, he's rage farming, he's getting the mass engagements, and it's working. You have a lot of people on the right commenting. But the lack of morals there is the problem to me, is you're willing to glorify the death of an innocent firefighter that literally died protecting his family. Right. It's absolutely insane to me.
But I don't know that I could say that it's working. I mean, like I said, anybody who makes it a point of their career to call for death and violence, we won't have on the show. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I hate that guy for saying that. It's we'll just get banned in 2 seconds. Like YouTube will literally delete the show. And this is important too. So would Rumble. And this is a crazy thing. People are like, Tim, just do the show on Rumble then. I'm like, dude, you think the Rumble executives also want someone coming on the show and glorifying and calling for death? Right. They won't allow that either. Neither would X. X actually took down one of Destiny's posts over this. I don't know why the argument is that we should open up our moral lines to people who want to glorify the death of an innocent firefighter who's trying to protect his family from a would-be assassin. I mean, it's a ridiculous notion. I think we have to have some moral lines.
So I take back. I thought you were talking about Pacman. So.
Yeah, I don't know what David Pacman has said about the shooting or anything like that. I'm not too sure. All right, let's go. Nicholas Down says Victoria Nuland on video said there would be surprises that caused Trump to not be president just 3 hours before the shooting. Is that true? I mean, I've heard a lot of things. I don't know if that's true.
There is an interview with her that she says something along, she doesn't explicitly say, a shooting, assassination, nothing like that. But, we've seen her time and time again kind of insinuate things, and then something odd happens. But there is a video of her saying something like that.
Normies Get Out says Tucker Carlson gave a speech and it ended with God is among us. Meme Lord confirmed. That's right. He was speaking while we were doing the show. Donald Trump will be speaking in 10 minutes. And also in attendance, we'll be doing members only and audience Q&A. I don't know how we compete with Donald Trump. Victor Germain says it's been 4 days since the attempt on Trump's life and still no official story. It's because they were all prepared for the assassin to be successful, hence the lies and the delays. I completely agree. We don't have an official story. I mean, actually, Luke, help me out on this one. How long after 9/11 until we got an official story?
Right away. They already knew it was bin Laden.
It was the day of, wasn't it?
Yep.
Osama bin Laden did this. We found the passport in the wreckage. They had a narrative ready to go. And I'm not saying anything about the theories. I'm just saying quite literally it happens. And on the news, they're like, we know what happened. And so whenever we see these big tragedies, we have a story. We have no official story right now. And that's why it's funny when we talk about what we think happened in some official capacity. Cenk Uygur, I guess, was very upset with Pierce Morgan for anyone asking the question. But there's no law enforcement narrative as to what really happened. They've avoided the question entirely.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, when there is like a mass casualty event or something along those lines, the officers do hold a press conference.
Yeah.
And we see that. And you've just been like waiting for the press conference. There's been no local presser.
Yeah.
There's been nothing from the Secret Service, nothing from the FBI.
I think we had a local presser.
Was there a local one?
I think right afterwards, and they just said, we don't know what happened.
Right. That's, yes.
And everyone's denying it. They're saying, oh, we weren't supposed to be government.
And also,
yes, you were.
you have a situation where legacy media is not doing its job, and they're intentionally
ignoring
it.
Very shocking.
You know what I mean? But it's like part of the issue with legacy media's failure is that they have so many resources. So to a certain extent, we need these big outlets that have global resources to do their jobs objectively and to make sure that they actually are the paper of record. Like their job is to record the story of our historical time. Mm-hmm. That's what their job is. And that they don't see that that's their job. They think that they're political partisans.
There's no journalism anymore.
And propagandists. No. I mean, it's absurd.
I take that back.
I will say, Andy,
we got two journalists right here.
Really good journalism for us.
We got two journalists right here. We got two more journalists right here. There is journalism, and there's a reason why people are sitting here, because they know where to find it. And I wish more people knew where to find it. But the corporate press is not journalism. An editor came out and gave numerous interviews saying that they should pull the Donald Trump photo where he's raising his fist because it's benefiting his campaign. And I'm just like,
But it's
Activism.
accurate.
The
It's just
truth- the truth
It's
is
just
benefiting his
reality.
campaign?
But this is a political party and a class of pundits that for years have been denying that reality exists. It's so impossible to believe anything they say when they actually think that men are women.
Well, and then
What are you supposed to do with that? You guys are liars. It's so clear. Like you are telling me that this, you're telling me this.
Riley Gaines telling us this story last night where she ties this race with Leah Thomas and is upset about it, and then has to go to this meeting where they try to make her okay with seeing male nudity in her locker room. And she's thinking, I'll be a nice person. I try to be understanding. And then she's going to these meetings where they're like, why are you upset that there is male genitalia in front of you? And she's like, what is going on? Why are you trying to
What is the
groom
lunacy?
me into accepting this?
Yeah.
well, in mainstream media, I mean, they've completely lost the plot. And then you wonder why, places like Tenant Media, Scanner, Luke's stuff, the post-millennial. Luke, we are changed. There we go. But all of these alternate media sources, everybody is flooding to them because they want real news. They want real history.
They
And
want
that is
it
not
from
what we're
people
getting
that
from
know
mainstream
what
media.
reality is.
Exactly.
There's a report out from Axios that the RNC this year has the viewership is down 16% from 2016. So they're presenting this as like, RNC, people don't like it, people don't care. What I actually think is happening is that it's being streamed and commented on by alternative platforms, and that you're losing people who have their eyes on Fox, on CNN. They're actually looking to places like YouTube, Rumble to provide both the coverage and the commentary.
Right. And also, what is the purpose of when the RNC was broadcast live on cable news networks? People are going to watch that, of course. But now there's 1,000,001 different channels. So everyone across the board is seeing their ratings dip.
Right. Yeah. Well, I want to say this. The 2 days people forget in history is January 7th and 8th of 2021. Those 2 days, 1.2 million people got churches, anyone that talked about the elections or the vaccines got deplatformed, or for that matter, Jesus Christ. Parler you lost Parler. Everyone was deplatformed, and the rest of the people were afraid to speak out because of January 6th. Well, what manifested out of that, I always say it, a lot of you might remember, but maybe a lot of you won't. When I was growing up, there was black and white TVs that went down to this little tiny blue dot when you turn them off, and we turned it back on, and they'd all come back to life. Well, that dot was our voices, and it didn't go out, and it got bigger. And what manifested out of those 2 days was podcasters and everybody getting their news from different places and all these different new social media platforms. Frank Social, Truth, Getter, Gab. I mean, it goes on. And everybody's getting their news. I was also growing up, there was a shampoo commercial that said, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. It was a great commercial. Well, nowadays, the word travels so fast. I don't know if you all know, I'm going to tell you this now, but this afternoon, my good friend Lou Dobbs passed away. Well, that traveled so fast when we put it out, when the president put it out, and our real president put it out, and myself, and it just went out there through all these different media channels. So people are getting their information from not just your Fox News and CNNs of the world.
Right.
I want to. So right now at the RNC, Eric Trump is speaking, and I just want to say this. Obviously I know the Trumps, I know who they are. I got to interview Donald Trump recently, and Donald Trump Jr. has been on the show a couple times. I think they're cool dudes. But after this past weekend, I actually feel this reverence for these guys, for this family. A day after Donald Trump takes a bullet to the ear, he took Sunday off. That's fine. But Monday he's right back at work. His kids are there. Their families are there. These people, my attitude was just like, bro, take a few days off. Like, no one's going to be mad at you after someone tried to take your life. But I'm watching this. They're all just speaking right now, and without a hitch, they're keeping it going. Yep. I don't know that I could pull that off. Yep. Someone tried to kill a member of my family or me, I might take a few days off.
Yeah. I mean, it really seems like they are rallying together and sort of pulling strength from one another. I mean, I thought it was really cool to see Donald Trump Jr.'s daughter, Kai, come and take the meeting.
She was great.
He made that joke. Yeah, Trump is going to give up the microphone maybe for the first time ever. Right. But I mean, what she said was so sweet. I mean, she's 17 years old, and she said, after I saw what happened, I want people to know who this is. And it's interesting to see, sort of inspirational to see this family say, we were affected by tragedy. We have gone through so much, and we're not shying away. In fact, we are becoming more bold in our support for one another. I hope people have families like that everywhere across the country.
We got a super chat here from Raymond G. Maga Stanley Jr. We cannot get complacent. Fight, fight, fight. He's actually standing right there. We don't have a camera angle for him?
He's
So
campaigning
I'm
to
trying to
be
find it.
mayor of this room right now.
All right. White Shark Operator
Paper
says,
ballots going.
Luke, to lead but curious what is it? To lead but curious what everyone thinks. Oh, Luke to lead, comma, but curious what everyone thinks about the October surprise, what the October surprise is going to be, and what your recommendation to push back against it is. World War III, right, Luke?
I think the financial calamities happening in 2025 are more realistic and more on my radar, particularly. But anything and everything could happen between now. You just can't really predict what a wild animal is going to do when it's cornered. So anything and everything is on the table. But I think if I'm going to kind of extrapolate a little bit more here, it probably will be a potential hit against Biden that will take him out of the picture and then kind of start off more of a civil kind of strife.
Well, but I mean, if Biden's out of the race this weekend, I don't think he'll be relevant at all. Unless I guess fair point, he's still the president.
Or an equal action like we saw against Donald Trump that's going to spur on more of a kind of reaction by the state to go against right-wingers. I think that's a possibility.
Joe Biden should be sitting in a rocking chair on his porch while his family grills and has burgers, and he can have a glass of Suntea and enjoy his old age, his golden years. Protect this man at all costs, redouble his Secret Service, bring in a couple other law enforcement agencies because we don't necessarily just trust the Secret Service, but protect Joe Biden at all costs.
I think he
could be hiding out right now.
Well, I think the assassination attempt on Trump's life, that was supposed to be the real surprise. October surprise, it can come early. I think that was supposed to be the real deal, but the shooter was just so incompetent. And now, my predictions are kind of more along the lines of Luce, looking more into the Trump administration. But if you're going to see something, being on the ground for years, watching the violence from the left, watching so many things go down, you could easily set something up if you really wanted to, against the left that would then garner support and, essentially for their candidate.
I am beset by a conundrum at this current moment, and I seek advice, generous counsel. So as you may have seen, if you the Donald Trump now has this hashtag of him raising his fist with the flag on X. When you use, I think MAGA and Trump 2024 makes American flags fall down. And I am being informed that for $100,000, you too can have an emoji attached to a hashtag for 30 days. I don't know if the individual who's discussing this with me would like me to state who this is, but they've requested that I purchase the hashtag Biden and use an emoji of him falling down the stairs.
Wow.
I am inclined to say yes to this. My only concern is if he drops out of the race tomorrow, that I just waste $100,000.
That would be. You want to wait past
should we
Sunday.
get that hashtag for Biden and it's him falling up the stairs?
Better would be Kamala Harris laughing, the cackle.
Yeah, but people might just like that.
Yeah, maybe.
I
think it's pretty funny.
I
Maybe you
really
have to wait 24 hours now and see what happens.
I think it would be the best marketing spend ever done, because everybody would be asking like why Twitter was running this, and I'd be like, because I paid him to do it.
Right.
But if he drops out of the race, it's not in the news at all.
I would wait for that one.
You would wait. Let's wait till Monday. If Monday he stands firm, he's recovered from COVID and all that, then we'll take up that emoji. And
the Biden campaign is scrambling to buy it right now.
They're going to do the dark brand and
well, they don't know if they're going to be around, apparently.
It was someone saying, Matt Binder was saying that X has gone pro-Trump by having this emoji, but Ashley St. Clair is tweeting with them being like, you can just buy that, the Biden campaign needs to do it. Okay, everybody, right now, we're going to go to the members only show, so smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Head over to timcast.com, click join us if you want to watch the members only Q&A. The reason why we decided to do this on the members only Q&A is so that it can be as spicy as it needs to be. And so we hope we have some great questions from the audience. Of course, Donald Trump is also slated to speak at any moment at the RNC, so I can't blame you if you want to go and watch that. I don't know how we compete with him. I want to hear him speak too, but we're going to get the questions out for those that want to ask these questions and have them answered. Again, timcast.com. You can follow me on X at Timcast and Instagram as well. Mike, do you want to shout anything out?
Well, use promo code Tim for go to mypillow.com. We've got some great specials. I want to thank your audience, Tim. You guys have really helped my employees. We're the most attacked company in history. I really believe that, and we're very grateful for your audience that has come through with supporting us.
Yeah. Ronald, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Taylor, do you want to shout anything out?
Just the amazing news source that I work for, Tenet Media. You see it on the shirt. It's at Watch Tenet Now on X, and then personal is Taylor USA, Tayler USA.
wearechange.shop. If you think my shirts are crazy, you're going to love my lawn signs. And also, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/wearechange. I'm going to be releasing a lot of crazy videos there, so subscribe, youtube.com/wearechange.
You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons, and of course, check out everything we're doing at thepostmillennial.com.
Thanks so much for joining us, both online and in person. It's so fun to see everyone. I'm Hannah Claire Brimwell. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. You can follow their work at Timcast News. It's great, and I really appreciate the stuff they're doing. A lot said some good on-the-ground interviews. You can follow me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at hannahclaireb. Have a good night.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.